Maverick News, the antivirus program for your mind. And now, the Freedom Reporters.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Rick Walker. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. Hello, Maverick family, and welcome new viewers. What an interesting 24 hours it has been. I was going to come on earlier or at least I was going to try to come on earlier to jump in and join in the coverage of the coup, the attempted coup in Russia. But as things transpired, I know Lori was on her channels earlier today and was participating in other streams and covering what was going on over in Russia. But I didn't get involved because I had other things going on today, but not just because of that. It just serious, yes. An existential threat to Russia? I didn't think so. And I also didn't think that it was something that was going to, it was quite apparent to me that if this was going to evolve into a full-blown coup attempt, that it was going to take time, that this would not happen by 6 p.m. tonight, that if this was going to be a full-blown coup attempt, that we'd be still covering this well into the night and into tomorrow. And so, you have to, as they say, metaphorically, keep your powder dry. So Lori was out there. She was providing coverage. I thought, I'm going to sit back and I'm going to conserve my energy just in case the coverage needs to stretch on into the to the late evening hours and into tomorrow. But I also saw that there was every indication that this was not something that was likely to evolve into a real threat to Putin. You don't just drive your military convoy into Moscow and overthrow Vladimir Putin, not without meeting some pretty serious resistance. So it was pretty clear to me from the very beginning that this was not going to be that simple. And very likely it was going to be diffused at some point. And so here we are tonight, and it does appear as though everything has been defused. It looks like we have some sort of a peace deal, if you want to call it that has brought this whole episode to a conclusion, at least in terms of the imminent threat to Russia's national security and the stability of the Putin government. Not surprising to me. Now we'll see how all of the rest of it plays out. And you're looking, I think, now at politics, maybe legal issues. We'll see over the next even day or two. That will give us a real indication of where all of this is going. We will talk about it more this evening. I'm not even sure what else we're going to talk about because all of my attention really has been pretty much focused on this as much as it could be today while I was just dealing with other matters of business around here through the day. But yeah, we'll certainly be talking about this tonight. I thought it was probably wiser, smarter to not just burn up all of our energy through the day today when there was a lot of coverage going on out there, not to downplay the seriousness of this. I absolutely want to acknowledge the seriousness of it, the significance of it, but at the same time, with these kinds of news events, experience has taught me that it's also important to keep a level head, employ some degree of rationality to your thinking, and stay calm so that you can make come up with a logical assessment and keep things in perspective. And I think that's kind of what I did today. We could have provided blow by blow coverage, and it would have been very dramatic. But Lori was out there and she was providing some of that anyway. So I think that at the end of the day, where we're at now is exactly that, a place of stability. So I just need to take a little break here, folks, because on the multi-stream that we have going, it doesn't appear that we're firing over there. So I need to get that thing fired up and make sure that we've actually got a feed going out. So stay with me. I will be right back. It'll take me a minute, maybe two, to get the multi-stream feed working properly. And then we'll dig into the whole story in Russia and other stuff tonight. There's also a speech with Donald Trump coming up that we might dip into in just a short while here on the Maverick News Channel. He's speaking at the Faith and Freedom Conference, so don't go away.
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, so the situation in Russia, what do we know? Well, we know that Vladimir Putin was briefed today and told that, brought up to speed on what was going on with what the Kremlin is describing as an attempted armed rebellion. And this all happening after the leader, the owner of I'm going to call it a mercenary group because that's what it is. They're a mercenary group. He's a paid gun, a hired gun of the Wagner Group, claimed control of military facilities in Rostov-on-Don, which is a key Russian city on the Ukrainian border. Now, you have to go back, and you might remember that he was complaining about not having enough ammunition from the Russian military. We're talking about Yevgeny Prigozhin, who has a long history of working with Vladimir Putin, but he started this private military company, which the United States does the same thing. They hire private military contractors as well, rather than draft people into the military. These are soldiers of fortune, essentially, and this is the Russian equivalent of that. Prigozhin was originally, I guess, in the catering business, and then got into this business and makes a lot of money by putting together a private little army of his own. And then he works with Russia and enjoys the support, the protection of Russian sovereignty, and the support of the Russian military and the Ministry of Defense in Russia. And he has been instrumental with his company in the Donbass, in these annexed areas, and they needed the Wagner Group before annexing those areas that are now in Russian control, which are part of Ukraine, because the Russian military couldn't go in there before, back in like 2014, when things really started to escalate and the people living in those areas were being shelled by Ukrainian forces. So it was basically these private contractors that went in there and worked with local militia groups in order to provide some pushback and protection for people living in those areas in the face of actual confrontation attacks from Ukrainian forces. But because it wasn't Russian territory, there wasn't an actual formal military operation, there wasn't a declaration of war, if you will, then Russian forces couldn't go in there. So these were hired guns who went in, and they've been also instrumental in what has been the longest battle of the Russian military operation in Ukraine, in Bakhmut. Wagner really kind of delivering results for the Russian military. These private soldiers of fortune, the Wagner Group, those soldiers went in and they scored victories for Russia in that area. And they've been instrumental in helping Russia during this conflict. Well, there's no love lost, though, between Prigozhin and the defense minister, Shoigu. They have a long history of friction back and forth, and this has resulted in what we've seen unfold over the last couple of days. A revolt, a rebellion, if you want to call it that, with these Wagner forces. And Prigozhin looking to unseat, to remove Shoigu. And in fact, going even further than that, there are reports, and I don't speak Russian, so I don't know if these translations were entirely accurate, but calls for, or predictions of, him saying that Vladimir Putin would be replaced within a day. That certainly has not come to pass. And so they created this convoy, and there was a military convoy on their way to Moscow. The threat was imminent. It was very real. It appeared that we were dealing with something very serious, that Putin had a real problem on his hands, especially because Prigozhin was meeting with high-level military officials. Along the way, there was video out there of him sitting down and speaking with very high-ranking senior Russian military officials. And there were assertions coming from Prigozhin that as they were being greeted by Russian military, it was all friendly. And so it looked like, and I wasn't buying this, but it was looking like there might be some softness in the Russian military, and maybe some alliances being formed, and there was maybe some support from the Russian military for the Wagner soldiers and Prigozhin. Also complicating all of this was this movement, I guess, where the Wagner soldiers, the Wagner Group, and Prigozhin, they've been told that they were going to have to sign contracts to have their forces integrated into the actual Russian military. And I think that Putin is very careful about making sure that when it comes to legalities, even international law, and certainly the laws as they pertain to the Russian Constitution, he's a stickler for details in that regard. And so, because this conflict, this special military operation has evolved, and you now have these annexed territories. And I don't have all of the information on this, so I hope that I'm getting all of this accurate for you. But I do know that there were these contracts that they wanted to have signed to integrate the Wagner Group into the actual Russian military, so that those forces, about 25,000 of them, I guess is what Prigozhin was saying they have, would be integrated into the Russian military. And that is because things have changed. And so they wanted to bring them under the umbrella and control of the Russian military. But of course, for Prigozhin, that is something that essentially destroys his business when it comes right down to it, right? It also eliminates sort of the need for him, because he's not part of the military. He's just a business owner, essentially. And these soldiers are just soldiers of fortune. They don't have rank. They're not part of the military. Certainly, they're part of the Russian military operation, but they operate separate and apart from. They are not part of the Russian military. That is going to change, though, because one way or another, I'm sure that Putin will insist that these contracts be signed. So that will effectively end the current business model for the Wagner Group, at least as it relates to everything going on right here, right now in Ukraine. He has, I guess, soldiers in other countries as well, which is not surprising, because these mercenary groups, they get involved in all kinds of different conflicts, including, I think they have some troops in Africa. So I'm not sure how that will play out for him in that regard, but this was not a good scenario for Prigozhin from a business perspective. Anyway, that has certainly been a factor, no question about it. And the meetings with the senior military officials. Anyway, this has all evolved now, and it looks like we have some sort of peace deal in place tonight, because Prigozhin has now ordered his troops to stand down. So they were traveling, they were all heading north to Moscow, and this was a very significant challenge to Russia. And of course, the UK, the United States, all the NATO countries, they've all been following this very, very closely. And of course, was this was a dream come true, really, for Volodymyr Zelensky in Ukraine. But they have now been ordered. Prigozhin has ordered his troops to stand down, and it looks like they're going to turn around and go back. And it looks like this has all sort of been resolved, and they have some sort of an agreement. So, what do we know about this? Well, I'm taking everything that we are being fed tonight from various sources with caution, because with this pace of information coming out, I'm not sure exactly how accurate everything is going to be at this point. And I think the only thing that is really certain is that there is a lot we don't know, because there is so much that has been going on, I'm sure, behind the scenes so much going on that we're just not seeing here on surface level that I think we have to be careful before we jump to any conclusions. So we do know that Prigozhin said that he was greeted as a hero in Rostov-on-Don. And that is, I think, something that's being echoed by some of the senior people around Prigozhin tonight as well. And that's the messaging that is being fed out to both mainstream media and independent journalists as well. And it isn't really clear at this time what exactly the deal is, or exactly why Prigozhin decided to stop heading toward Moscow. But that is the case. So it looks like the threat has been eliminated, at least for the time being. The question now is, now that they have whatever deal is in place, will Putin actually honor this? You know, when something like this happens, and without knowing what's going on behind the scenes, if you were the leader of a country like Russia and you had some private military contractor who you've been employing and paying to go out and kill your enemy and furnishing this person and his private army with lethal weaponry, and you have somebody like that suddenly go rogue on you, how would you respond after he stands down? What would you do the day after that? This is a guy who was coming for you, coming for your senior military leadership, making demands of you. And it seems to me like the messaging coming from Prigozhin from the very beginning of this episode has been that he was opposed to corruption, essentially, suggesting that the reason Putin got into this, he released a very long video where he said that one of the main reasons that Putin got into this was it was basically a lie. He called Vladimir Putin a liar, saying that the justification for getting into this conflict in Ukraine was not entirely legitimate, and laid out a case for actual corruption where he was showing or suggesting that money that was earmarked for the defense budget, for weaponry, for ammunition, for armored vehicles, and so on, that a lot of this was being skimmed off and had been, misdirected even as far back as 2014 and moving forward as the Wagner Group was in the Donbass and the other areas that were being shelled in Lugansk. So these are the claims, the charges that Prigozhin was laying out. And so for him, this was the way he was portraying himself to the public in these videos and to his forces. And also, I think that messaging was less directed at Putin and the Putin government, more directed at the public and his own forces to lay out a case, justification for what he was doing, that his motivations are just. But is that really true? He also claimed that his forces had been attacked by Russia and that as many as 2,000 of his own troops had been killed. And yet there were videos released where they were walking through a wooded area, and I don't have that particular video queued up here for you tonight, but they're walking through a wooded area, and it didn't look to me like it was an actual missile attack, as he had asserted. It looked to me like the trees were kind of broken and like maybe a tank or something had driven through there, something like that. But there was no evidence to me of any kind of incineration or heat damage or any remnants of missile fragment that had been exploded on site. It didn't make sense to me. I wasn't buying that either. And that's one of the key things in a situation like this. Whatever information is flowing to us, whatever we're being shown, regardless of the source, you have to take it all with a grain of salt. Stand back, stay calm, and question it all. And just not and be careful what you decide to believe, because there's so much honestly straight up false information that is flowing in a situation like this, and so much going on behind the scenes that the truth is we don't really know what the truth is, because nobody's really going to tell you the full truth at this point. The truth may come out, but we don't really know what the true motivations are behind all of these players. We don't even know what the true motivations are behind what Vladimir Putin is doing, let alone Prigozhin or Shoigu or any of these other people involved either, all these other military leaders. And we don't know what the motivations are even behind a lot of what the media is. We just don't know. Why is so-and-so saying such and such? Tonight, as you go through your Twitter feed and all through the day today, when I was looking, I was noticing that there were clear demarcations in the tone of the coverage. There were many people online spouting off, many of them predicting the demise of Russia, the overthrow of uh, of Putin, that his hours were numbered. I didn't think so. No, I didn't think so. Wishful thinking. I'm sorry, folks, but for those of you who were jumping up and down and with glee, thinking that this was finally the end of Russia, not quite. Far from it, actually. And here's Zelensky. Like, what he spouted off here with this little video that he produced. Let's
потери, вся ненависть.
What's he
Человек из
saying?
Кремля,
I don't
очевидно,
know.
очень боится и, наверное, прячется где-то, не показывается.
I don't speak
Уверен,
his
что уже не в
language.
Москве. Звонит куда-то, выпрашивает там что-то. Он знает, чего боится, потому что он сам
He's saying
создал
something to the
эту
effect
угрозу. Все
of
зло,
he's
все
pretty sure
потери,
that
вся
Putin
ненависть. Он это сам распространяет.
was
И
no
чем
longer.
дольше
This was
еще он
during the course
сможет
of the events.
перебегать,
Putin's no longer in
тем больше
Moscow.
теряете
He's
вы,
afraid to show his
все,
face.
все, кто связан с Россией. Что будем делать мы, украинцы? А мы будем защищать
Blah blah
свою
blah blah
страну,
blah
мы
blah
будем
blah blah
защищать
blah
свою
blah blah
зону.
blah blah. We don't. It's not worth anything because it doesn't, because he's just spouting off, taking advantage of the situation. I said yesterday in our broadcast that this might well be, and I'm pretty sure that this may have been a factor, and I'm pretty sure it is a factor. The CIA, the United States, talk about a psyop. A psyop is not necessarily just a straight up thing. They're very subtle, they're hidden, they're cloaked, they come in a myriad of different forms. And it's sometimes not even, you can't tell that there is even any degree of psyop even taking place. But if you don't think that the United States and NATO, in particular the US, had their fingers into this on it seemed at least some level where they were trying to manipulate people psychologically and through information warfare, think again. And if you don't think that they were trying to reach out directly or even indirectly to the leader of the Wagner Group in order to influence him and get him to work for them in this instance, think again. You're darn right they were. Information warfare, it's not just the crude dropping of leaflets on the enemy like we saw, in World War II or the Korean War or Vietnam, where they'd fly overhead and just dump leaflets out over the enemy. No, it's very sophisticated now. I mean, we've talked about things like MK Ultra mind control. Online with the internet today, psychological control of people, very, very sophisticated. Make no mistake. And if you want to, you want to win a war, you probably don't even need to drop any damn bombs. You can do it by controlling people's minds. They have the ability to honestly target specifically through geolocating and specific messaging, just the soldiers within the Wagner Group. They can manipulate the information being fed even to Prigozhin specifically, to give him certain kinds of information, to get him to think a particular way. Make no mistake about it. They do it to us all the time. You think about it, they do it in a mass way with us, but they can also do it in a micro way. They do it in a macro way with the masses, in a mass information, disinformation, propaganda campaign, information warfare, but they can do it in a micro way as well, to really target specific information to a particular person. So if they wanted to run a psyop, and this is just me speculating, I'm not saying this is exactly how it might have been done or how the US might have been involved, but they could be sending very specific kinds of videos, posts, messages out to Prigozhin to just get him to think in a particular way. And then they might have even gone so far as to launch some sort of a false flag attack, or yeah, like not a false flag, but a double false flag to attack those troops, make it look like it was the Russians doing it, then feed information in there to get him to believe that that's the case. I mean, there's so many scenarios that could have gone on. All I'm saying is, don't doubt for one moment that the US wasn't involved in this in some way. This had all the earmarks of a CIA kind of operation. And we know that Lindsey Graham, Senator Blumenthal, just this week, 2 days ago, they were talking about if Russia uses any tactical nuclear weapons on Ukrainian soil, if there's anything that happens to that nuclear power plant, then they're instantly at war with all of the NATO countries, and we'll invoke Article 5, which means an attack on one is an attack on all NATO countries. Well, they're ramping up that rhetoric. Well, all this is just beginning to start, and then all of this rolls out. You don't think that that's not a coincidence? In my estimation, no. And you know that Anthony Blinken, Victoria Nuland, CIA, the Biden administration, Biden has made it clear that he wants regime change in Russia, that he wants Putin out. He said that Putin can't be allowed to remain in power. He came right out and said it. He's admitted that this has turned into a war of attrition, and that really the ultimate goal is to get rid of Putin and invoke some sort of regime change there. Well, this was a dream come true. Do you think this just happened organically? I think and this is speculation, I cannot prove, nor will I probably ever be able to prove any of this, because it's all military intelligence, special operations, psychological operations, CIA, information warfare, all top secret stuff. So there's no way that we'll ever absolutely know exactly what has gone on there. But if they weren't, then they suck at their job. If they weren't involved in this kind of activity, this is a much more effective kind of warfare than just dropping bombs on your enemy, going head to head with missiles and mortars and tanks. It's far more cost effective and far less physically destructive, and yet I would say as effective or more effective than kinetic warfare itself. Information warfare is the key to everything today. You can overthrow a government and not have to fire a shot, because you can get people out into the streets protesting en masse. You can get a private military force like the Wagner Group. If you can turn them and get them to go and fight their own government, now suddenly you've done something extremely sophisticated, haven't you? And all you have to do is just manipulate some information, manipulate a few little circumstances, engage in a little activity over here with a sort of a double false flag thing, or engage in different kinds of information warfare, psychological warfare, just to get people to think about something a little different, to skew their perspective and get them to believe something. And the way information flows is it begins at the top, and flows down. So all you need to do is get a couple of key people with authority and credibility within their circle of influence, like a military commander, to believe something and tell others that he believes it. And because that person has authority, the people around him and under him will begin to repeat the same messaging, and it flows down from the top down, and the people underneath will instantly believe it as well. News distribution happens in precisely the same way, with top tier newspapers and newswire services disseminating information. This is what the gospel is. And then every other news organization, your mid-level, your regional, your local stations, your newspapers, right down to the little newspaper in a small town, they get all this information and it flows top down. And because it comes from the top, like say the New York Times or Associated Press as a wire service, or Reuters, they take it as truth and they just repeat it. They regurgitate it, usually just reprinting these articles in their newspapers in order to fill up space, sometimes localizing them, doing local versions of the stories. Well, the flow of information through information warfare, as disseminated through intelligence agencies and the CIA, it works in very much the same way. Get a key military leader to believe something and then share it. And the people underneath him will believe it and follow it. And you've got them in the palm of your hands. I've been following this stuff and studying it extensively. I mean, I've always been in media from the time I was knee high working in media. All my life, this has been what I do. And I see exactly how governments, the military, especially here in the West, have learned to use and manipulate information to manipulate people, to manipulate us. They're doing it to us every single day. And it's not being done in a straight on way where you're recognizing it and you think that you're thinking critically and you're immune to it because maybe, I'm aware that they're engaging in this kind of act. No, 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 no. Even I'm susceptible to it. Everyone is, because they don't do it in a way that you really know, and you don't really know where the information is coming from. And sometimes the information that you think is coming from a friend is actually a foe, and they're just feeding. Sometimes they give you more information to support and confirm your bias in order to pull you further along on that thought process. It's quite complex. I don't really have the time to kind of go into it even further here tonight, but I would not be at all surprised if that was part of what was going on, has been going on over there in Russia. The lettered agencies, the CIA, the West, absolutely, make no mistake, they would have been working hard to exploit this situation from the very beginning. And I would go further than that. I would say that they probably have been involved from before this erupted to this level. And they've been probably trying to stir the pot through a variety of the methods that I just laid out. And of course, they're never going to reveal their sources or their methods. But make no mistake, they're engaging in this kind of activity all the time. And I would say that even some of the information warfare going on over here, where they're characterizing it as Russian misinformation or Russian disinformation, I would say that even a lot of that stuff is the US government itself and the CIA engaging in precisely the dissemination of that information. When it's not the Russians at all, it's probably them, where they plant that information. And even though it looks like it's, counter to US interests, it's like a double negative. They're feeding people's heads full of this stuff in order to really screw with people's minds. I'm telling you. And you don't know whether you're coming or going anymore. And that's why, as they say, once people no longer know what the truth is, then the CIA has done its job. Well, cooler heads have prevailed, at least in Russia for the moment, because we're seeing the Wagner troops now stand down. A little bit of video coming out of there tonight. So, these are some of the scenes that we had coming out of Russia as the Wagner Group made its way toward Moscow. And then Putin did finally today address the nation. And he called the whole thing treason, a rebellion. That had remained silent really until today, again showing a steady hand, a calm approach to all of these challenges, but today finally addressing the nation. And now it appears we have finally some sort of, see here in this video, it's indicating that Wagner went in there in 2014. Those areas now annexed. Yeah, and Prigozhin indicating and confirming that they had 52,000 troops under his command. And, a lot of people online tonight saying, through the day today, they were saying things like, they don't have enough troops in Russia to stand up to Prigozhin's Wagner military. Again, a lot of, I think, wishful thinking from people who were hoping that this would lead to the demise of Putin and Russia itself. But, oh, no. You don't just waltz into Moscow with a convoy and initiate a coup against Vladimir Putin. That guy, he's got real weight behind him. And he has a superpower. He commands a powerful military force. They have hundreds of thousands of troops to stand up to the Wagner Group. Now, that being said, this is also what I was watching very closely. I knew that and it was quite obvious, if Wagner was going to be successful with any kind of an actual coup attempt, time was not on their side, because they would need to move in, do it very quickly, initiate action, use coercive measures to remove Putin from office, physically get in there and initiate a military action that they would not be able to prolong, because without the support of Russia's Defense Department, they have no logistical support, not from the Russian side. That means no replenishment of resources, no replenishment of ammo. They would not be able to stand up very long to Russian forces, which still would have full access and command of all of the stockpiles of ammunition and supplies, and all of the logistical mechanisms and systems that need to be in place for any kind of a prolonged conflict. So if there was going to be a coup, it would have to happen swiftly. So they were making their way to Moscow, but didn't make it all the way, and they were already beginning to encounter some support, some rather resistance. So there was a feed out of what some people were calling the Russian Civil War. So basically, a day of intense drama. And this was the situation in Moscow. In the end, not really a big surprise to me, because, as I say, you just don't waltz in there and just take over from Vladimir Putin. Here's an image of blockades being set up today. So this is, what the public was seeing along highways and things. But honestly, again, Putin acting with a level head and a steady hand throughout all of this. He did not even go so far to impose full martial law, as far as I could see. Saw no indication of that. There has been free movement throughout all of this for the citizens of Russia, largely, even in Moscow. even as they were setting up roadblocks like this in some areas for security reasons. We saw a pretty steady hand from Vladimir Putin himself. And this has been the scene. This is what it has looked like from live camera footage throughout the ordeal over there in Russia. I mean, you want to know what it looked like in Moscow during the height of the rebellion? Well, this is it. That's Moscow through the day today. This is not live now, but this was from a live cam earlier, as you know, we kind of reached the peak of what is being described as a coup or an attempted coup, a rebellion of sorts, right? This is what it looked like. Pretty normal, really, overall. People still out. And I have to wonder if this had happened in the United States or in Canada, anywhere in any Western country, if there was any kind of a threat like the one we just witnessed over the last 24 hours, if that was happening here, I can pretty much guarantee they would lock us down hard. They would be telling everyone to stay home and would not, if anyone was caught out, I think that there would be charges laid, people thrown in the slammer just for being out and about. Not so, not in Moscow, not today, even as this threat this imminent threat was rolling toward Moscow in the form of a private military convoy of armored vehicles. Pretty amazing. And again, pretty calm. And here's the, let's run some of this with Prigozhin. This is kind of what led to a lot of this was videos like this that he had posted. This is what led to it all. He says this is a march of justice. He said it wasn't really a coup. March of justice, he called it.
Это чьи-то, отцы, и чьи-то сыновья, и те,
которые не дают нам боеприпасы. Accusing the defense minister of ordering those attacks on his Wagner troops.
Жрать их потроха, У нас нехватка боеприпасов 70%.
And for claiming
Герасимов, где боеприпасы?
После того, как
the Wagner successes
то произошло не тактическое отступление. Поэтому товарищ Коношенков, мягко говоря, скукавил. Произошло просто бегство подразделений Министерства обороны с флангов.
Входим в тыловые районы. Да, сказали, будем выходить потихоньку.
So these, he's been a vocal critic over the last month.
Сегодня пополудня в 12 часов полностью был взят Бахмут.
Oligarch interests, in other words, corruption, stealing money to benefit the elites. See? Similar charges leveled against the Biden administration.
ЧВК Вагнер, которые погибли сегодня. Еще кровь свежая.
So, when it comes right down to it, if you think about what he's saying, very similar accusations coming from right here against the Western leaders, the NATO leaders, especially the Biden administration or regime, right? Where we know that they've been funneling money into Ukraine for years and years and years. And that this war has been used as a way to essentially launder money for corrupt politicians in various countries. I don't think there's any question that has been going on to a large degree. They can't even provide proper accounting over there. Well, here's Prigozhin leveling the same kind of accusations against some of the rich people in Moscow. Is there any truth to that? Who the heck knows? No way for me to know for sure, but I'm not surprised those kinds of accusations are being used. And you see, Even if it's not true, maybe he believes it's true because he's been fed information so that he believes it's true. And where's that information coming from? And is that credible? Or maybe it's a psyop, or maybe it's true. We don't know. But that's the justification he was using for his actions. And that's what he was using to generate support for taking it straight to Putin, and especially the defense minister, Shoigu. War is a dirty business, and it is a business. With all that money flowing, all that money at stake, all that money available, it's just inevitable that you're going to get corruption. And then what have we saw? We saw at that Rebuild Ukraine conference over the past week in London, where other people are lining up, these big corporations, they're all lining up at the public trough to cash in on the rebuilding of Ukraine. That's on the other side of the equation. And in my view, even that in itself, even though it may be entirely legal, it's absolutely corrupt. Because all of that money is going to come from, you guessed it, the middle class and the poor and the average person in the form of taxation. The governments will just print whatever money is needed, and we have to account for it all. We have to provide the productivity to cover off the cost. All the people here in the West and the people in Ukraine, because they are now in debt, for billions and hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of weaponry in order to destroy what's really been used to destroy everything around them. Because of this war, they're now in debt for that, because a lot of that wasn't just given to them. It has been loaned. They've given them loans. That money ultimately has to be paid back in some way. So that really enslaves not just the people of Ukraine today, but future generations of Ukrainians. And now on the rebuilding side, these big corporations are lining up to get these government contracts to go in there and rebuild all the infrastructure, the roads, that dam that was blown up, power plants, houses, thousands and thousands of houses and businesses and strip plazas and you name it, sewer systems, water treatment plants, everything that a country needs, they'll rebuild it all with government contracts paid for by, you guessed it, more loans or grants from the various NATO countries, except with the one caveat being that they did indicate that they want to hold Vladimir Putin and Russia accountable for all of the destruction there, and they want to make Russia pay for it. So if Russia loses the war, they'll be on the hook for all of the expenses associated with rebuilding Ukraine, rebuilding an entire country, reparations. And we've seen that throughout history, and we've seen how that plays out sometimes, especially as we went into World War II. And the Germans, being held for reparations from World War I, their economy was in the tank. But anyway, that's a whole other story. The point being that good luck with that, because I don't think it's going to be that easy to get rid of Vladimir Putin or to destroy Russia as a nation state. So where does that leave us? Well, I think now we have to sit back and wait and see what happens with Prigozhin and what exactly this deal really is, not just what we're kind of getting on the surface here tonight. Prigozhin, even though I've indicated that the CIA and the US and NATO countries, they're probably involved either directly or indirectly in influencing the actions of Prigozhin. They don't like him very much. So I'm not sure that guy has many friends tonight, because if you don't have to look very far to find this about Prigozhin. Let me bring it up here for you. Right there. He's wanted by the FBI, folks. Yevgeny Viktorovich Prigozhin. There he is. So it says here the FBI is offering a reward of up to $250,000 for information leading to the arrest of Prigozhin. Prigozhin speaks Russian. It has ties to Russia, Indonesia, and Qatar. Yevgeny Prigozhin is wanted by the FBI. It says here, it's a caution, wanted by the FBI for his alleged involvement in a conspiracy to defraud the United States by impairing, obstructing, and defeating the lawful functions of the Federal Election Commission, the United States Department of Justice, and the United States Department of State. This occurred in Washington, D.C. from early 2014 to February 16th, 2018. Prigozhin was the primary funder of the St. Petersburg-based Internet Research Agency, the IRA. He allegedly oversaw and approved their political and electoral interference operations in the United States, which included the purchase of American computer server space, the creation of hundreds of fictitious online personas, and the use of stolen identities of persons from the United States. These actions were allegedly taken to reach significant numbers of Americans for the purposes of interfering with the United States political system, including the 2016 presidential election. Russia, Russia, Russia. Well, I think in this case, there's probably truth to all of this. On February 16th, 2018, a federal arrest warrant was issued for Yevgeny Prigozhin in the United States District Court for the District of Columbia after he was charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States. Should be considered an international flight risk. It says here, if you have any information concerning this individual and you are outside the United States, please contact the nearest American embassy or consulate. If inside the United States, please contact your local FBI office or the FBI's toll-free tip line. Here it is right here. I'll read it out for you. 1-800-CALL-FBI. You may also submit a tip online to tips.fbi.gov. So if you see that guy wandering around in your neighborhood, the FBI would like to hear from you. Right now, I don't think he's too hard to find. He's all over the internet tonight. FBI, if you really want your man, you know where to go get him. He's in Russia, somewhere between this point and that point, because he was on his way to Moscow to pay Vladimir Putin a personal visit. Interesting that we know now, and we knew then, that he has been directly involved in information warfare himself, that he was part of that confirmed, honestly, information warfare operation in the U.S. back during the 2016 election. Make no mistake. I mean, I don't think that, well, we know too that from actual evidence that came out that those activities from the actual Russian hackers or online trolls or the computer experts that were used to create online fake social media accounts, that their activities were not significant enough to influence or change the outcome of the 2016 election. That appears to be a fact. So yes, there was activity. Yes, there was involvement. We know Prigozhin was involved in all of that, but it was not extensive enough to warrant, not extensive enough to actually change the outcome. And no evidence has been presented, and no credible evidence to link the Trump campaign to any of those activities. So the assertion that Donald Trump was Russia, 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 and this is part of it. No, that guy was acting on behalf of the Russian government as, again, an independent contractor engaged in information warfare. And that's all part of what he does. And so it makes me kind of wonder what the heck this was all about, this coup attempt. If indeed that even is what this was this an actual coup attempt, or was it simply him exerting pressure on the government to have the defense minister removed, a person that, yeah, actually they've had a lot of friction over the years, these two guys, Shoigu and Prigozhin, adversaries struggling for power and influence, and with the existence of his Wagner Group even potentially on the line because of these contracts that he was told he was going to have to sign, and that all of his soldiers would have to sign to become integrated into the military as part of, so they would become actually part of the Russian military. No incentive really for him to sign any of that stuff. There's no upside for him personally. For those Wagner soldiers, I don't know if it's even advantageous for them, because I don't know what they're paid, but a soldier of fortune is usually very well paid, probably better paid than an actual soldier within any military, any army from any country. Soldiers of fortune take the money up front because they don't get the pensions and the careers in the same way that an actual soldier with an army run by a sovereign state would have. So yeah, they're well paid, generally speaking. You want to make a lot of money? Go become a soldier of fortune. You make a lot of money in a short period of time. But you're a soldier for hire. You're paid to kill people. That's what your job is. I think when somebody, this is my personal opinion, when someone joins the military, and I never would, because for me, you never know what government might be in place, especially when you're living in a democracy. So one day you're fighting for a bunch of neoliberals. The next day, somebody else gets elected with a completely different agenda, and you might be fighting for someone with a completely different political ideology who gets the country involved in some crazy war that you should never be involved with to begin with. And I would never want to go over there and start killing people for somebody's political reasons anyway. So I would never do it. But I think a lot of people, when they get involved with the military, when they join or sign up for, I'm going to join the Air Force, or I'm going to join the Army, or I'm going to, do whatever. They do it because they can get an education. They do it because they feel like they're serving their country. They do it sometimes for patriotic reasons, because they love their country and they believe in their country. But when you become a soldier of fortune, you're basically just paid straight up to go in there and fight a war someplace. You're not being quite so patriotic. When you join the military, like the Canadian military, a lot of those guys, especially during times of peace, they engage in other activities. We've seen just in the past month, Canadian military personnel, Canadian Armed Forces being used to fight forest fires. When there are floods, they call out the military and they slug sandbags and help people in communities. There are those aspects of being in the military as well. But soldiers of fortune don't get involved in stuff like that. They have a singular purpose, and that is to go and kill people, whoever it is that they're told to go kill. And that is not being patriotic. That is killing for profit. And that is what Prigozhin is all about. He is the head of a mercenary military company. That's why I said just yesterday, would not surprise me at all if someone got to him and basically made him a better offer and said, turn that way and go do that. Now, he did stand down. So whatever has happened, maybe that's not the case. But one way or another, I think the CIA and the United States, NATO countries, they've had a hand in the information warfare aspect of this. Of that, I really have no doubt, to some level. If they weren't involved in, or at least trying to manipulate things through information warfare, then they really were not doing their jobs. Because that is what they're supposed to do. That is what it is. And they could have been reaching out to Prigozhin indirectly by having somebody from some other country even go in and have negotiations or talks with him or try to influence him in some way. Just give them a little piece of information over here, even if it's not entirely true, a little grain of truth, and just skew his way of thinking and have him convinced that the Russian military was actually attacking his troops. And I don't know. But you see how the game is played. And when it comes to war, it's a dirty, 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 dirty business. But some masterful negotiations have taken place here. I'll tell you that today. And as a result, now we see these guys standing down. So whatever the agreement is, we're told that the agreement does secure or provide for the security of the Wagner forces. So essentially, Putin has agreed that he's not going to destroy them. Does it guarantee the safety of Prigozhin? Maybe. Possibly. Don't know. It appears to be the case on the surface, but I'll tell you this. I'll be very surprised if Prigozhin lives much longer. Wanted by the FBI. The West doesn't like him. He's got no friends, I don't think, anymore now in the Kremlin. He's proven that he's really not a guy to be trusted. Unless this was all some super double quadruple mind screw where the whole thing has been a psyop in order to get our attention focused on what happened over the last 24 hours or so, instead of looking at some other big military operation that maybe Russia is launching in some other location in Ukraine to counter the counteroffensive from the Ukrainians, which hasn't been going that well from everything we've seen anyway. But this has been too organic. It's been too widely publicized. There's been too much of this. This is too heavy for it to be simply some sort of a double, triple, quadruple mind screw, psychological operation. Too much, I think, invested in this. Too much time, too much effort, too many resources to go to this extent just to kind of screw with people's psyches. I don't buy that. This actually did happen. And for that reason, I think Prigozhin has proven can't be trusted. If I were him, I'd be sleeping with one eye open, baby, for quite a while to come. Because I don't think he has any friends anyplace now. I don't think anybody's going to trust him. And if I were Vladimir Putin, I'd want to deal with that. You know what I'm saying?
Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So this is what this is some of the images in Rostov-on-Don that were coming out. So this is what people were seeing, with these Wagner troops. And this is what led to a lot of the concern and the ultimate convoy heading to Moscow. And now, of course, they're standing down. That's the latest information. And it looks like they're going to head back, and they'll probably resume fighting for Russia on the Ukrainian front. So again, this is not live. This is
военный объект.
older footage, but I just want to roll this so you can kind of see again, if you haven't seen this stuff, this is what it was looking like in Rostov-on-Don. And then I'm going to show you in just a moment some of the some of the comments from people through the day today, where I think some people don't just no clue what they're talking about, making stuff up, wishful thinking, hoping that Russia was going to implode as a result of all of this, that Putin would be removed from power. A lot of predictions. It makes me chuckle a little bit, even though this is all very serious stuff. And you can see here that, this is actually Prigozhin meeting with senior military staff. This was what was really concerning to a lot of people, because the senior military staff, not armed, Prigozhin is surrounded by Wagner soldiers, making some speculate, leaving some to speculate that some of these senior military officers from within the Russian military may be siding with Prigozhin and the Wagner forces. And then Putin addressing finally today, over the last 12 hours or so, the nation, calling these actions criminal, treason, a mutiny. They were using the word mutiny. And again, boy, if I were Putin, and even though you have an agreement with that guy, what are you going to do with him now? The trust is broken, and you need ultimate trust with someone like that because of the armaments, the power that you're giving that person. Look at what just about happened here. So do you honor whatever agreement is in place? If you don't, then it sends a message to your adversaries, to the entire world, really, that you can't be trusted either. So if you sign an agreement with one of your enemies, a treaty, if you will, then how can you be trusted if you don't honor this one with Prigozhin? So I would say the solution is to let a little time pass, and then wouldn't it be interesting if Prigozhin met with an unfortunate accident and maybe accidentally fell out of a window? And so Prigozhin tonight coming up with this statement just a very short time ago, saying the fulfillment of criminal orders and an attempt to interfere with the planned campaign of justice will end badly for employees who have made the wrong choice. I'll bring that up and show you. I am not exactly sure what that means. Here it is. This is Prigozhin tonight. The most promising politician turns to the National Guard with an offer that is better not to refuse: the fulfillment of criminal orders and an attempt to interfere with the planned campaign of justice will end badly for employees who have made the wrong choice. So I think that's a message. Maybe if I'm reading that correctly, I think that's a message to his own soldiers that if you defied me, you'll pay the price. I'm not sure. I don't have enough information to put that into full context. That's a little cryptic for me. It's probably tied into other statements that he's made today that maybe I'm not aware of, but maybe someone in the comments here understands what he's getting at with regard to that. But interesting comment, nevertheless. What was the motivation, I guess, behind Prigozhin doing all of this? Well, a lot of speculation there. But, as I said, a lot of people cheerleading here in the West. And here's an example of, look, this is a YouTube video. And the heading here, the title for this video, Russia coup. There aren't enough troops inside Russia to protect the Kremlin against Prigozhin. So that was 10, 12 hours ago that was posted. Was that really true? There were a lot of posts on Twitter from people saying very similar things to that all the way along. A lot of people predicting that this was going to be the end of Putin. Not me. I saw this as a real serious problem, but ultimately I was like, no, gonna take more than this. Even though Prigozhin has all these troops and these tanks and armaments, I don't think so. This isn't the end of Putin. Not yet. I wasn't on board with that. So I think that Prigozhin, honestly, at some point saw the writing on the wall, understood that as much as he was carrying some weight here and had some clout and force behind him, I think he finally realized that it's not taking over, getting in there initially. I think that's actually the easiest part of staging a coup. But after you've ousted someone like Putin, say you had been successful and that was the goal, and he removed Putin and took over in some way, you know what you have to do then? You have to maintain control. You have to maintain power. It isn't just a simple matter of walking into Vladimir Putin's office, kicking him out, maybe even shooting him, and then saying, I'm in charge now, and putting your feet up on the desk and smoking a cigar. Now you have a country to run. And if you don't run it properly, pretty soon you'll be the one experiencing mass protests, people in the streets. You'll have somebody maybe waiting in the wings to take you out too. And who's to say that there wasn't someone waiting in the wings all along, hoping that this thing was successful so that they could waltz in there and take power, even though you were the guy like Prigozhin who went in there and did the dirty work and got rid of Putin. And who might that person be sitting there waiting in the wings? My guess is that if that were to be the case, it would be someone who would essentially be acting as a puppet of probably NATO. Because as I said before, this had all the earmarks for me of some sort of a CIA-led attempted coup, or at the very least, an attempt to completely disrupt things in Russia. And that's exactly what we've seen over the past couple of days. And in fact, this has been an escalation over time, right? Because we were talking about Prigozhin challenging Shoigu. This was going back, what was it, a month ago? At least a month ago, we were talking about that. And we had an interview with, who was it that we were talking to over in Russia about that? It'll come to me. I was talking to somebody over there. We had them on the show and we were discussing this very thing. And it's very sensitive at that time because it was unprecedented, really, especially for a military contractor like Prigozhin to come forward and start criticizing the defense ministry and indirectly Putin himself. Takes real cojones to do that. Because, you know, you just don't do that over there in Russia. You don't do that here either, really. You're going to end up in jail for a very long time. And we heard through the course of this that if Prigozhin were to be convicted for treason, for an attempted coup, for mutiny, whatever the charges specifically or formally are under Russian law, he was facing up to 20 years in jail for trying to do this. My guess is we haven't heard the end of this. I don't think Prigozhin has heard the end of it or experienced the end of it. No question in my mind. There's more than he needs to worry about. That is for sure. But we are seeing tonight that there are reports coming out, and according to Russian state media, major changes to the leadership of the Russian Ministry of Defense, including changes to the current defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, and Army Chief of General Staff, Valery Gerasimov, have reportedly been agreed upon as part of this deal, this peace deal, in order to stop what Prigozhin calls the march for justice of the Wagner PMC group toward Moscow. So it's this deal that has been struck that has resulted in the end of these escalating hostilities. And we also know that as part of that deal, security of the Wagner Group has been assured. But will that hold? Oh my goodness. Sleep with one eye open. Mr. Prigozhin, sleep with one eye open. I'll be right back. And when we return, I'll have both eyes open. And we'll try to provide clearer vision on all of this for everyone.
The New World Order. Government overreach. The Great Reset. Mainstream media lies. Now more than ever, independent voices are needed. Donate now at freedomreporters.com. That's freedomreporters.com. Maverick News. The antivirus program for your mind.
Fear not the storm, for truth is on our side. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay, I'm back. And you know what we're going to do is I'm going to put the link to the studio into the chat. And that will allow you to join the conversation, join the program live here with your webcam or your cell phone. All you have to do is click on that link, use your webcam or the phone camera that you have, and that'll put you right into the program. Instead of going to the phone lines tonight, we'll do the live video chat. And the other way for you to join the conversation directly in the same way, if just to make it very simple for you, is if you go to our website at mavericknews.ca. Let me see if I can put that up on the screen here for you. Mavericknews.ca. I guess scroll down on the main page. MaverickNewsChannel.com you can go to as well, but mavericknews.ca is shorter, easier to get there. It'll take you straight to the main page. You just scroll down and I'll show you how easy it is to join the program. Okay, so here's our website, Maverick News, mavericknews.ca. Just scroll down, scroll down. Scroll down. You could watch the show right there if you wanted to. You can watch it live just by clicking on the video window there. And just below the video window, it says click and join show. Just click that. Click join show. And that'll take you to this page right there. And then where it says enter studio, just click on that. And I'll let you into the show. I'll let you into the studio and you can join us here on the program. Now, we might be picking up Donald Trump in a few minutes, so we'll see if we get anybody in to talk about what we have here tonight. Oh, and I remember who it was we were talking to. It was our friend Regis Tremblay over in Russia. We were discussing this very thing about Prigozhin, and that goes back almost a month now. It was a delicate matter to discuss at the time, a delicate matter now, but mostly it's a delicate matter now for Prigozhin because, as I say, I don't think he has any friends left. I doubt very much if he has any at this point, anyone he can trust, because I think he's broken his vow of loyalty to Putin. Anyway, let's get things fired up here. Yeah, so here is the link. I'm going to put it in the chat here if you guys want to join the conversation. I'll put it right, join the show. And here is the link. In the chat it goes. Bam. All you got to do is click on that link and away we go. And you just need to use your webcam tonight. So I'll put that, okay, that goes out now to Rumble, Facebook, Twitch, Twitter, and so on. And I'm going to now put it into the chat over on Rumble as well, because I'd like to get some new people on the program tonight. We have a lot of new people watching from all over the place. The numbers are up across various platforms, and we're multi-streaming across platforms. And here's our man of the hour, as usual. First up, our regular. Here's Leo, Mouth of the South. Hello, sir.
I always got something to say, mister. Always.
I'm glad of that.
I got a lot of time on my hands, don't I? I get to listen to the Maverick show every night, all night. And if I miss it, I'll catch it at work. Don't you worry. So what do I got? So convenient. So convenient. With everything going on in the Biden world and Hunter and all that crap.
Yeah.
Look, folks, look over here. Right? So obviously mercenaries are paid by the highest payer. That's how they work, right?
That is right.
They're not loyal to anybody, to no nation, to nobody. It's all about dollars and cents. Pizza. Ooh. All right, I'll come in for some pizza in a few. Pizza night. Armando's Pizzeria.
That's pizza. Famous Windsor Pizza, Windsor, Ontario, Canada. That's world famous pizza is what that is.
It is. If you don't know about Armando's, and you got to come to Windsor and try Armando's. Or Sarducci's. Sarducci's is good too.
Yes, sir.
But it's all smoke and mirrors, Rick. At the end of the day, it's all about dollars and cents. Okay, everybody's getting paid the ski mask way, and the Wagner guys are no different from anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
It's a job. They've been infiltrated by the CIA, no doubt about it. Right? So that's my 2 cents on that.
Yeah, I'm with you on all of that. And what do you think? Does Prigozhin have something to worry about now? I'd be thinking, who's going to put a bullet in the back of my head down the road?
Well, Russia does have what we say a history of getting rid of people. And it was funny when you said sleep with one eye open. I know you sleep with one eye open. I don't even sleep. Right? So being tossed out a window, that could be a convenient fall, right? Or injected with something along the ways, poison. Russia's been doing this for a long time. You will not see Prigozhin in the next election, not in Russia. So if that's his bid to run in the next election, we know what happens to anybody that runs against Putin, right?
Yeah. Well, he ran against him today, and he didn't get too far.
No, I don't think I don't think Putin's going to put up with him. And anybody that says, "Oh, there's 25,000 troops," that's peanuts. That's peanuts compared to what do they have in their military? 900,000. Yeah,
something like that. I mean, it's massive, right?
Right, and that's their military. And who's their best friend? China.
Mm-hmm.
China's going to let anything happen to Mr. Putin. There's not going to be a hair on his head that gets harmed. And as for Zelensky to say, oh, he's off hiding, this and that, okay, buddy. Where is he? The question is, where is Zelensky?
Yeah.
He's the one who's been off hiding. He's not even in his own country, from what I hear, right? So, it's going to be interesting. The next couple weeks going to be very interesting. But hey, don't look away. Keep looking at that Hunter shit. When the text message that you did last night just floored me, man, to the point I was like, I didn't know any of that, Rick. I get my information from you, not from CNN, not from any of them, right? So, but I knew that the Hunter Biden laptop crap is all true, right? So, but what was said there, and especially when the big guy gets his 10%. Who's the big guy? It's Joe Biden.
Yep, that's exactly right. And that's documented. They have so much proof, and yet Tulsi Gabbard was on Fox on the Gutfeld show, and I think she really nailed it. What we're dealing with here now is basically a dictatorship, where it's a two-tier justice system. There's special treatment if you're with the right family, if you are with the right political party, you have status, then you get treated by the justice system in one way. But if you're an average, ordinary, everyday American, or Canadian for that matter, you get treated differently. Things that you would be thrown in jail for, you get away with if you're, Hunter Biden.
Well, look what they're trying to do to Trump. Okay, trying to charge him, put him in jail, the whole 9 yards, right? And he's the ex-president of the United States of America.
Yeah.
Okay? And if Hunter Biden's got felony charges, cocaine and guns don't mix, folks, especially in the United States of America. There's people, you get caught with cocaine, you get caught with guns. Some states, it's a mandatory for 3 strikes and you're out, 3 felonies. So if you get 3 felonies in one day, you're done. 30 years in prison.
Yep. I said this the other day, and maybe I'll get your thoughts on this too. If we end up with RFK Jr. running against Trump for the presidency, what is social media going to do? Because they've basically been banning both of those guys across all the platforms. So they would have to essentially ignore the entire election and pretend it isn't happening, because how would you allow even any acknowledgement of the election going on if you have to ban both of the candidates from your social media platforms?
Well, you said it yesterday, in the day before, about Bill C-118 or Bill C-18.
Yeah.
Okay, about the social media meta getting rid of any mainstream media. There's a ticket right there. So if you're not on mainstream media, how's the elections going to go?
I don't know. Well, right there, C-18 in Canada, that's resulting in Meta, Facebook, saying that they're just going to pull all news content off their platform completely, because it's not worth it to them if they're being forced by the government to pay mainstream legacy media a fee to have that content on their sites. I don't think the government was honestly expecting that, and that's actually going to end up hurting the mainstream legacy media, because it will reduce the exposure they have to the public, and they will actually end up with even less revenue than they have now, because their material won't be available on Facebook anymore.
Exactly.
Bad news.
In the U.S., okay, for starters, okay, you got Donald Trump and RFK. Now you're going to split the vote. It's the same thing we just happened with the conservatives in the PPC. The conservatives probably would have been in the last election if everybody didn't jump on the PPC ban, right? And everybody just stayed on the conservative.
Well, the difference is in the States, though, of course, if RFK Jr. gets the nomination for the Democrats, then he's running as a Democrat, and then it'd be the Democrat for RFK, which the party doesn't even want the guy, but they might get stuck with him if Biden self-destructs along the way. Running against Trump, the Republican, who the rhinos and the neocons, they don't want him either. So it's, the MAGA crowd that is propping Trump up over there, and I think will assure his nomination. And then like the social media companies, they hate both of them with a passion, and they're doing their best to deplatform them both. So where does that leave them? It's like I said before, pretty soon on YouTube, the only thing you'll be able to watch is cat videos because they're so busy banning everybody for everything.
I believe you're right. Right, you're right on that one. And when I jumped on your page today on YouTube, there was only one person watching, so I don't know what the hell was going on there. So I jumped off it. I made comments on it and everything. Choosy was on there, and me. That was it.
Well, it's got to be more than that because I have a record number of people watching across the platforms tonight. Depends on which YouTube channel. So maybe you're watching on a secondary channel. I have more than one ruling.
I thought it was weird. There was only one watching, right? And I was like, so I jumped off it and jumped back on, and then I've seen everybody on.
Yeah, that's a secondary backup channel that I have running, not the main one.
Yeah, so I would have been talking to myself all night long.
Yeah. Well, I can see lots of people in the chat here too. So yeah, definitely have people watching across all the platforms.
I don't know what to make of the U.S. election. You know, we're Canadians. We don't have any say whatsoever in the U.S. elections. You know, wishful thinking is all we have, right? But when you have a president of the United States over there, how do you impeach somebody out of office? If this guy hasn't made enough mistakes already, okay, and he continues to make mistakes, man, oh man, God save the Queen.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Can you believe the stuff that comes out of his mouth? I mean, how many times does he have to fall down before the media finally start to do their job and hold the guy accountable and show him for what he really is? In fact, maybe for the first time yesterday, as we saw in the news conference at the White House, the press gallery, the media there, they were finally hammering for about 4 straight minutes on the Biden press secretary, asking her about the Hunter Biden issue. And they were really, holding her feet to the fire. And then they did the same thing with Rear Admiral John Kirby. And he ended up walking away from the podium, refusing to answer the questions. So for the first time, I really witnessed the mainstream media acknowledging this issue with Hunter Biden. Maybe that's an indication that things are beginning to shift. What do you think?
Well, it can only go on for so long, man. It's insanity when you look at it. And when you have mainstream media not putting anybody's feet to the fire, that's where the problem is, right? So it was good to see yesterday. Will they continue it? I don't know. Now they got the Wagner to talk about. What's more important? Corruption in the United States government, Chinese influence, the Ukraine crap with Hunter Biden. Okay, I don't know, the Nord Stream pipeline. There's just so much scandal going on over there, man. I can't believe it. I really can't believe it.
And what do you think about this theory where the U.S. Navy detected the sound from the implosion of the submersible Titan, which was down on its way down to the Titanic wreck, but withheld that information for a couple of days? And the theory or the accusation is that the Biden administration was holding that information back to allow that drama to play out, to take the attention off the Hunter Biden scandal. Do you put any stock in that?
Well, they do it, right? That's propaganda. That's propaganda for you all day long.
Yeah.
Right. It's been going on for years. Why wouldn't they?
Yeah.
They have the power to do so. Right. It's weird because I watched a video last night of actually the leaked recording, of the knocking going on down by the Titanic. Bunch of bullshit.
I haven't heard that audio. Was that very convincing? Was there any validity to it, do you think?
No, I don't think so. As for the U.S. Navy about it, 100% they knew about it. They have all the sonar in the world to play games down there, and that's what they do, is play games. They know.
What raises a flag for me is that they were saying that the search area was the size, I think, of Connecticut. Okay, something like that. And yet
500 meters from the Titanic when it popped up.
It makes no sense because that the thing is carried out there on a ship, right? on a boat, and then it's loaded off the boat and it's basically dropped straight down over top of the Titanic wreck, and it sinks to the bottom, basically using lead weights. And it's got some navigation, but it basically uses lead weights to drop right down. So you know exactly where the darn thing was going to be anyway. You didn't have to search an area the size of Connecticut. They've got the thing geolocated. They've got the latitude and longitude, and they know exactly where to go to look. And the boat was sitting right there over top to begin with.
Well, the professionals came out and said, all the deep underwater currents that are moving down there and this and that, right? One guy explained it, and I do know a little bit about the water and how it moves, right? But 1 knot equals 100 feet per minute. Okay, that's 1 knot. So if you're going 6 knots at 600 feet per minute, that's how fast you're going with the current, right? So to be 500 meters from the wreckage, and like you said, the state of Connecticut. Well, what if they knew all along where that thing was?
Yeah,
the U.S. We'd have Russian submarines in the Detroit Channel right now if we, you know what I mean. No, they have the technology. They know. That's what they do.
And then somebody with a camera was. I don't think it was the U.S. Navy or even the Coast Guard that found it. It was somebody else with it.
James Cameron. He's already making another movie.
Is he really? Like another movie, like another documentary or something about the Titanic?
No, of the Ocean Gate. He's on it.
He is. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, he's making another movie about it. That shit sells.
Well, welcome, Dragon. How are you this evening, sir?
What's up, sir? Doing good. How are you guys?
Well, just fine. So what is your assessment of the situation in Russia?
My assessment on Russia. When you play with fire, you get fire, and you get burned, and it's hurt. That's my assessment. No, actually, what can I tell you? Wagner's, the poor guys, what are they doing, right? Being paid by others to do the dirty job? Bad people.
Mm-hmm.
What you have? Nazis around. Sorry for the word, but you got the Ukrainian or whatever else that are playing that ball or calling names. Yeah. Well, what you get? You get a bad problem around, and you get those people fighting each other's. Meanwhile, Dragon is trying to get a nice cover from the rain, because, well, it's not too rainy now, but it was. And having some fun at the party, because I was at a show a little bit earlier for the Saint Jean-Baptiste.
Right, you said you were going to go down
mostly
there today,
good vibes.
Good for you.
Well, I got you some feeds, actually. It's on your Facebook, my little friend.
Oh,
Hope you will enjoy.
Hey, Dragon, tell us about Saint Baptistus. Who is it?
Can you repeat the question?
Me? Yeah, tell us about.
I can hear you.
Yeah, tell us about what it's about. Who is he? You don't even know.
Well, you know what? I will research that for you, because, well, sometimes I get messed up with this one, but
come on,
let's say Saint Jean-Baptiste. What is it? What is it for? It's the national, actually. Okay, it's our national Quebec kind of thing, right? And why do we actually have that party? Well, it's in the honor of a Saint André Paul Jean-Baptiste, which was practicing the baptism in Quebec, actually. And there's part of this history that actually we are putting on around here. Actually, the idea is that Quebec was found around here, and this is why we are actually, partying. Actually, Quebec's born, or actually how we kind of discovered it. Because if you remember, Jacques Cartier did discovered Quebec in about the 24th of June, 35, if I remember well. 1535.
Okay.
So this is where it comes.
Well, we're going to bring in, who do we have up here now? He's not showing up.
Can I tell you something? I do believe, and well, it's probably not a belief, but could it be possible that, why do we have the Titans thing coming, right? Why did it happen? I would say probably because we were trying to survey the depth from enemies' subs or vessel. That's probably a thing. It's probably not true, but we're thinking.
I don't understand what you're saying. What?
Well, what happened if you got, say, Russian subs in our territory?
Oh,
would we like to see it? I mean, it's probably not it, but I've been told that it's probably a thing. If it's not, well,
hello, Keith.
We should look into it.
Hey, Rick.
Oh, sir?
Dragon, how you doing?
Who's this?
Great.
Keith Roblin, welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Cheers.
Share your thoughts. What are you thinking about the attempted coup in Russia?
Well, I take a little bit different view on it than some. Myself, I think it was a put-up job between Prigozhin and Putin, because it sure got the NATO all stirred up. I was listening to it most of the day, and Biden was on the phone somebody was on the phone, because Biden can't even remember to pull up his zipper. But, somebody was on the phone with all of the NATO, UK, France, the whole 9 yards, stirring up a mess. And I just wonder if it wasn't Putin and Prigozhin's way of pulling out the dissidents that are in there.
So are you saying that there's some people who are theorizing that this was Putin's way of getting rid of Shoigu indirectly?
I don't know as much as a way of getting rid of Shoigu, but the Russian dissidents that were attacking in around Belgorod, down in through there a couple of weeks ago there's quite a number of them that are the anti-Putin, eh?
Okay.
And, if they flush them out, then they don't have to worry about their backs when they're going against Ukraine. That's just a theory that I come up with. It just seems too convenient, and there wasn't a whole big fuss. To me, Prigozhin didn't put up a big enough show. What the hell, 5,000 men? That's all he had with him. That wouldn't even get him to the outskirts of Moscow before they'd be wiped out. And
well, I heard the number was 25,000, not 5.
Yeah, no, when they stopped the convoy, that's all they had in. That's Prigozhin has that in his army between 25 and 50.
Yes.
And they only had 5,000 with them. Now, Prigozhin ain't a dummy. He would have had a hell of a lot more men with him if he was going to take over Moscow. And I think with the armaments that Moscow has set up to prevent against all the UAVs and everything else that's coming out of Ukraine, he would have had a pretty tough time getting in there with 5,000 men. Like, that just isn't enough. That's like me and Leo getting their friends together and going to take on Ottawa.
Let's do it, baby.
Yep, we gotta. But, just to me, the common sense says that, no, I think it was a false flag to see what NATO and the other countries would do if Russia did get in a spat like that. It may have cost a lot of time, and
it could act like this too. It could act like this. Now that you see the Wagner's doing it, every country has a group like this. The United States, the black flag, whatever they are. Okay, every country has a mercenary group hiding somewhere. Okay, so if the Wagners could do it, well, we could take over the Americans now, and we could take over Canada, we could take over this country, right? So it might be, it might have all been made up by Putin in the end.
That's, it didn't seem strong enough to me for a full coup.
And we have, is this Al? Hello, Al. Are you there? Well, you've disappeared out of your video feed.
I'm here.
Dragon, I'm just muting your mic because you're breathing into your microphone, and it's really loud. So I'm just muting you while you're not speaking. Hello, Al. How are you tonight?
I'll wait for my picture to kick in.
It's there for you. You're on a little bit of a delay, but you go ahead and to tell us what you're thinking about the situation in Russia today and tonight.
Oh, I say fuck them all.
Me too.
Okay. Care to elaborate on that?
Well, number one, this is all fuck. Just remember, there's a lot of propaganda flying people. A lot. And you know what? The fucking Russians have been awesome trollers this whole way through. Even clown fucking shoes. Right? Prigozhin. He's been playing this whole fucking part. And then there's this whole big kerfuffle. Right? Right? There's a kerfuffle. Oh, it's not a kerfuffle. Fuck off. So I say stick it in your fucking ass. As far as I'm concerned, it's a big fucking propaganda play. And you know what? The game is still the game. And I want to know, what the fuck are we guaranteeing? Anybody?
I'm sorry, I don't understand by what we're guaranteeing. What are you talking about?
As Canadians for Ukraine, what are we guaranteeing? Like rapporteuring, guaranteeing?
I don't know, but what do you like on your tombstone?
The third boy guaranteed held Russia and cover loans that is given to aid to rebuild. Pardon me, I say Russia, but is going to cover, make sure that all the loans given.
Yeah, we're losing you there, Keith. Your audio is all broken up. I just know this, that in terms of, what we're on the hook for, we're on the hook for making sure that all of these bills are paid at some point. If they can't make Russia pay, we pay for the weapons, for the ammo, for the rebuilding, for everything. We're all on the hook for it.
Yeah, we're even paying for the pizza.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Woo. Woo.
So, that being said,
I feel blessed. How about you boys?
I don't know what to make of it. All I know is that it's a beautiful day in Windsor, Ontario today, and this pizza is so damn good, Rick. I'm telling you, man. Can you see it?
I can, and I'm jealous because Windsor honestly does have the, some of the best, if not the best pizza in the world. In fact, I know that they do have a world pizza competition, and you've had some of your pizza places there in that international competition actually win
Oh yeah,
the title of best pizza in the world.
I think it's cheese.
I can smell it from here.
It's, I'm telling you, look at that. It all holds together. Nothing's falling off. What do you like on your tombstone? Pepperoni, cheese, and mushroom. Pizzagate.
Okay, so you know what? We're gonna jump out of this conversation. We're gonna pick up a little bit of this feed from the Trump speech. He's coming on stage right now, folks.
Yep.
So,
guys. Okay.
Thank you everyone for joining us here on the program, and let's just jump right into some of this Trump coverage.
Pleasure.
I'll
Have a good one, everybody.
As much as thank you guys. Thank you very much. Here we go now with President Trump live at the Faith and Freedom Conference. Just pull that down so we don't get the copyright strike on the music, which we always kind of get hammered on certain platforms. And we'll pull this graphic down here. Just a reminder tonight that you can support this channel by donating at freedomreporters.com or maverickdonations.com, and that helps cover the bills here on the Maverick News Channel. Certainly appreciate the past support and the support that you're providing now and in the future. And there he is. He'll be commenting tonight, no doubt, on the Hunter Biden situation. He'll be talking about his indictments, I'm sure. And still the front runner by far. DeSantis a distant second in the polls on the Republican side. Some suggestions that RFK Jr. should be asking Trump to debate him now, even before the nominations are decided. But I just don't honestly see that happening. I don't really see the upside for Trump in that case. I don't think he would entertain it. No need at this point. Probably hoping that RFK Jr. is just, pushed aside by the DNC. And I think that's probably the most likely scenario, unless the only way I see RFK Jr. getting the nomination is if Biden self-destructs in some manner, either physically or otherwise. Let's pick up some of this audio. Here we go. President Trump speaking live now.
Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you very much. My friends. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. It's great to be back with so many proud American patriots who believe in God, family, and country. Thank you very much. This is a great group of people. And I want to thank a man of incredible commitment, vision, and devotion, Ralph Reed. Ralph, I want to wish you a very happy birthday. Very, very, very interesting day to have a birthday, because a big decision came down 1 year ago today. So that's very interesting. That's very interesting, Ralph. Let me also recognize Faith and Freedom Coalition Executive Director, Tim Head. Tim, thank you very much. Tim, wherever you may be. Thank you, Tim. Great job. As well as Senator Lindsey Graham. Lindsey, thank you very much. He's gotten very much more conservative, I have to tell you. Carrie Lake. Alveda King. Alveda, wherever you may be. Alveda. Frank Pavone. Frank, thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And congratulations as well to Richard Viguerie on receiving the Defender of Freedom Award, a big deal, and to Mike Huckabee, my friend, for a long time, long time, getting the Lifetime Achievement Award. I think he's better now than he was 20 years ago. You want to know? I heard what he had to say, but he is not a good example of it. You're in great shape. Thanks, Mike. And thanks for being a friend. I also want to thank a great politician and a fantastic person running for governor of North Carolina. His endorsement yesterday was amazing. Right? From North Carolina. Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson. That was such an endorsement, it went viral. It was all over the world last night. I think he's going to do quite well. These young ladies followed me. I guess we have, 99? This is your 99th event. And they're from North Carolina, and they're incredible, and they're beautiful, and they happen to be rich, I think. But they're great, and he's going to do very well, Mark, I think, in North Carolina. Last but not least, let me say a very special thanks to all of you that are gathered here. The crowd is incredible, and even outside, it's packed. So something's going on. We do have great poll numbers. You know, we just got some poll numbers, 77-23. That was good. That was good. That's against the Republicans and beating Biden by 11. You say, why only 11? How could he possibly do so well? But it's a real mess. Our country's in a horrible situation. Since 2016, Faith and Freedom Coalition volunteers have knocked on 17.8 million doors, reached over 30 million Christian voters in their homes. And last year alone, you reached another 30 million voters in their churches. Incredible job that Ralph and the group do. No group has fought harder in defense of the Judeo-Christian values that we all stand for and uphold, and no group will be more crucial to our magnificent victory on Election Day 2024. So important. That'll be the most important election we've ever had. I said it with 2016, but I say it with 2024. I think even more strongly going to be the most important election this country has ever had, because our country is going to hell. With your help, we're going to evict crooked Joe Biden from the White House, and we're going to take back our country, and we're going to make America great again. For 7 years, you and I have been fighting side by side to rescue our country from evil and from the sinister forces who hate it. I believe they hate it, and I believe they actually want to destroy it. Now we're approaching the most important battle of our lives. As we gather today, our beloved nation is teetering on the edge of tyranny. I believe that, and you believe that. Our enemies are waging war on faith and freedom, on science and religion, on history and tradition, on law and democracy, on God Almighty himself. They are waging war. That's not a war they're going to win. The radicals are setting fire to our Constitution, abolishing free speech, attacking religious belief, erasing our borders, corrupting our elections, and we have corrupt elections, and trying to impose their blasphemous creed and woke communism on every American man, woman, and child. And that's what they're doing, and they're trying so hard. We've never had a situation like is going on right now in our country. But the people in this room will never let them do it. They'll never let them get away with it, and it's not going to happen. We will not waver in defense of our faith, our freedom, and our great American flag. They don't want the flag either. They don't want anything. They don't want anything that's good. And you wonder why and how did they ever get elected in the first place? It's sick. Together we're warriors in a righteous crusade to stop the arsonists, the atheists, globalists, and the Marxists. And that's what they are. And we will restore our republic as one nation under God with liberty and justice for all. The menacing specter of left-wing repression has been growing steadily for years and years. It's been growing, and we were stopping it very powerfully for 4 years, and now it's picked up at a level that nobody's ever seen before. First, they slandered Americans of faith as haters and bigots. Then they corrupted the media. They installed radical left judges to subvert our Constitution. They used the IRS to target conservatives. They spied on our campaign, and specifically, they spied on my campaign. and we caught them. They're terrible. Nobody would have thought. Could you imagine if it was the other way? Could you imagine if, let's say, I spied? Let's not use Biden. Let's use Obama. Let's say, Mike Huckabee, that you and I spied on Obama's campaign. Do you think it would have been fine? You know, this would be, we'd be away for a long time, wouldn't we, huh? They tried to take down a presidency with hoaxes and witch hunts. They're still trying, but we wouldn't let them. And now Joe Biden has weaponized law enforcement to interfere in our elections, the greatest abuse of power that I've seen and that most of you have seen in the history of our country. It's a hoax. Every time the radical left Democrats, Marxists, communists, and fascists indict me, I consider it a great badge of courage. I'm being indicted for you, and I believe the you is more than 200 million people that love our country. They're out there, and they love our country. This is a continuation of the greatest witch hunt of all time, which has been fully exposed in the Durham report, the IG report by Inspector General Horowitz did a great job on that report, and by great writers, journalists, and pundits all over the world. And its primary purpose is exactly that, election interference. They want to interfere with the upcoming election. They want to demean, insult, do whatever is necessary to interfere. And as you know, the fake news doesn't report on all of the things that you're reading about and hearing about. You're hearing about things that you can't believe, bigger than Watergate, bigger than anything we've ever seen. And if you look at the New York Times, or if you look at the Washington Post, or the mainstream media of any kind, ABC, NBC, CBS, not a word of it, not a word, not even a little bit. They want to interfere with the fair and free election to a point where Joe Biden is leading him in the polls by a very, very large number. They lie, they cheat, and this in an attempt to win the 20 election, and we're not going to let that happen. We're not. They rigged the did a good job. We had a lot of people that were very happy. There are some people said it was the most consequential presidency. But charging a former president of the United States under the Espionage Act of 1917, that's like making nuclear weapons in your basement, isn't it? An act for a crime so heinous that only the death penalty would do, is one of the most outrageous and vicious legal theories ever put forward in an American court of law. It's a disgrace. And the people they have doing it are disgraceful. And just look at their record. Disgraceful. The Espionage Act has been used to go after traitors and spies. It has nothing to do with a former president legally keeping his own documents. As a president, the law that applies to this case is not the Espionage Act, as the lawyers will tell you, and they like to tell you, and the press doesn't like to write about it, but the courts of law will see it, and they already know it. But the Presidential Records Act, which is not even mentioned in this ridiculous 44-page indictment of me. I didn't know about that. You know, when I graduated from the Wharton School of Finance, we didn't study being indicted, getting arrested, going to jail. We didn't know about that. They never taught us that. Under the Presidential Records Act, which is civil, not criminal, done in 1977, civil, I had every right to have these documents, personal belongings, in boxes. Joe Biden didn't. Even Mike Pence didn't have that right. They weren't covered by the Presidential Records Act. I was, because I was president, but they weren't. But these scoundrels and thugs, they only come after me. They didn't go after the many, many other presidents that kept their documents. You know about it. Many, many others. If you look at the Bush family, if you look at even Jimmy Carter, and I'd say he's innocent. I say Jimmy Carter's innocent. But they went after me. They didn't go after anybody else. And they went after me criminally. and it's not a criminal violation. It's not even a violation under the Presidential Records Act. And what could be more accurate a statement than Presidential Records Act? That's what we're talking about. Not espionage. It's not espionage. The crucial legal precedent is laid out in the most important case ever on the subject, known as the Clinton socks case. You know what that means, socks? Let me give you a hint. It has something to do with socks and taking things out in your socks. After leaving the White House, Bill Clinton kept 79 audio tapes in his socks and his sock drawer. So he put them in his sock. I didn't. I put mine in boxes outside of the White House, and the GSA picked them up and delivered them where they were supposed to be delivered. But they included in the Clinton discussions and the Clinton tapes a discussion of U.S. military involvement in Haiti. He can't get away from Haiti, can he? Right? He's done very well with Haiti. Discussions of U.S. foreign policy, both defense and offense, against Cuba. And what about them allowing China to have military bases now in Cuba? I think you're not too happy about that, Mr. Senator. And he's not even saying anything about it. Recording of President Clinton's conversations with foreign leaders, sensitive facts about trade negotiations taken from presidential briefings. This is all in the tapes. Discussions with Secretary of State about conflict in Bosnia and much, much more. Not only was Bill Clinton never even considered for criminal prosecution based on the tapes he took, and these are tapes he took. These were serious tapes. But when he was sued for them, he won the case. He won it. Judge Amy Berman Jackson's decision states, under the statutory scheme established by the Presidential Records Act, the decision to segregate personal materials from presidential records is made by the president during the president's term and in his sole discretion. Now, this is a Democrat-appointed judge, respected. Any normal administration, even an opposing one, would consider that to be the end. That's the end of the case. But not the corrupt Biden regime, because they're trying to win the election. And it's very hard to win an election when you're probably, definitely, I would say definitely, the worst president in the history of our country, without question. The Sox decision, they call it the Sox decision. Also, I quote, says, the National Archives and Records Administration, or NARA, very radical left group, by the way, they have the Constitution and the Bill of Rights flagged for being dangerous documents. Did you know that? Does not have the authority to designate materials as presidential records. Now think of that. They don't have the authority. NARA does not have the tapes in question. NARA lacks any right, duty, or means to seize control of those tapes. The president enjoys unconstrained authority to make decisions regarding the disposal of documents. Only the president, not vice presidents, not senators. Biden has a lot of documents from his time as a senator. That's bad. And he has a lot of documents from his time as vice president. That's bad. He has 25 or so times the documents I have. He has so many documents. He doesn't know. They're coming. They keep them on the floor of his garage where he has that really beautiful Corvette, he says. Neither the archivist nor Congress has the authority to veto the president's decision. The president can do whatever he wants with it. And this was a big deal, that act, and it was passed in Congress, 1977. The Presidential Records Act does not confer any mandatory or even discretionary authority on the archivist. They have no say whatsoever to classify records. Under the statute, this responsibility is left solely to the President of the United States. So what the hell are we talking about with this phony case? Well, it is true. I mean, it is true, isn't it? In other words, whatever documents a president decides to take with him, he has the absolute right to take them. He has the absolute right to keep them, or he can give them back to NARA if he wants. He talks to them like we were doing, and he can do that if he wants. That's the law, and it couldn't be more clear. Even the New York Times, just to finish up on this hoax, this is the next hoax. We had Russia, Russia, Russia. We had so many. Impeachment hoax number 1, impeachment hoax number 2. Who the hell else could take this stuff? I had a nice life. I had a nice, easy life. But I'm taking it for you because we're going to make our country great again. We're going to put America first, and we're doing it for you. But even the New York Times, in a major article, big article, and they must hate, probably the writer was fired after he said this. But it said headlines, it said that when it comes to asking for documents from former presidents, the only power that NARA has is to say, pretty please. Quote, asking nicely is about all they can do, and yet they reported me to the Department of Justice for criminal prosecution. They don't even have the right to ask. And if they do ask, they have to be very nice, and I don't have to give it. And yet I'm being prosecuted for this. And this is the New York Times saying it. Nothing like this has ever happened before, and hopefully will never happen again. And we are working all together because we're working as a country. And, you know, I'm probably the only person in history in this country that's been indicted and my numbers went up. Thank you. So true. You see the numbers. We're blowing them all away. It's crazy. Usually when that happens, you announce, ladies and gentlemen, I'll be leaving office immediately. And I want to spend more time with my wife and family and fight for my innocence. With me, it's just like crazy. What a life I have. I have a crazy life. But you know what? We became president of the United States, and we together did something that when you look at all of the things we did, probably nobody has ever done what we did, including rebuilding our military, biggest tax cuts in history, biggest regulatory cuts in history. All of the things that we did, we had no wars. We got out of wars. We beat ISIS. We defeated ISIS. 100% defeated ISIS. And got out of wars. And you would have never had Russia go into Ukraine. And you would have never had China. You would have never had China talking like they're talking right now about Taiwan. And you'd never have any words coming out of North Korea, Kim Jong-un, like what he's saying about the United States and our president. No, we had a much different time. They respected our country and they respected your president. They really did respect your president. Joe Biden is the most corrupt president in the history of our country by far. Just 2 days ago, a very respected IRS whistleblower, used to be very much, you remember when the Democrats used to love whistleblowers? They don't like the whistleblowers now. Revealed that Crooked Joe sat in a room while his son Hunter messaged a Chinese Communist Party official and said to this Chinese party official, I quote, I am sitting here with my father, and we would like to understand why the commitment made has not been fulfilled. This is cash he's talking about. Yeah. Tell the director, and it doesn't get reported in the newspapers. Tell the director that I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means right now. It means tonight. You believe this? I didn't know he was that tough. And if I get a call or a text from anyone involved in this other than you, Zhang or the chairman, I will make certain that between the man sitting next to me, my father, right next to me, Pop, hi Pop, and every person he knows, you will regret not following my direction. Now, can you imagine the newspapers not reporting this? Not a word of it in any of them, mainstream. I'm sitting here waiting for the call, he said, with my father. I'm sitting here with my father waiting for the call. In other words, send us money. Within 10 days, the Bidens got $5.1 million from China for absolutely no reason. They got $5.1 million. In fact, they've taken tens of millions of dollars from China. And that's probably why maybe he's not complaining about the fact that they're building military bases in Cuba. Maybe that's the reason, I guess. Mike, what do you think? It's not even believable. This stuff isn't even believable. The worst part of the whole story is that the press doesn't want to report it because, you know, there was a time like 15 years ago, 10 years ago, you would have gotten a Pulitzer Prize. Of course, they've been totally discredited because they gave Pulitzer Prizes for the accurate and wonderful reporting on Russia, Russia, Russia. Then it turned out to be a hoax. I said, you have to withdraw the prizes. They said, well, we don't know that and we don't want to do that. We've never done that before. I said, that's okay. Do it or I'm suing you. They said, we're not going to do it. And I sued them. You know, we're in court over that. We want them to return the Pulitzer Prize. And by the way, they're being decimated in courts. Very interesting. But we actually brought a lawsuit against them because they gave Pulitzer Prizes to the New York Times and the Washington Post for their accurate reporting on Russia, Russia, Russia. And even the papers now say it was a hoax. They all say it was a hoax, but they don't want to give back the prizes. So they have to give back those prizes. They will. Joe Biden is a totally compromised president because they're bribing him. They're paying him off. They know all the money they've given, and it's far greater than anyone has been able to really understand. And I'll tell you what, Jim Jordan and Jamie Comer and their group has done an unbelievable job, but it's far greater than anybody knows. This is just some of the things. It's tens of millions of dollars, and that's just some of it that's been found. And again, the papers aren't reporting it. It's not only China, though. It's many other countries, including Ukraine. So we're giving hundreds of billions of dollars to Ukraine. I keep saying, why isn't Europe paying a like amount? So we're in for 160 billion, and Europe is in for 15 billion. And nobody thinks that's right or fair, and it affects them more than it affects us. These countries know every penny the Biden crime family has taken in. The countries know. Ukraine knows. China knows. They all know. There are many countries. So he can't even or ever go against them. He can't go against them because they'll reveal the corruption. Because they know exactly. They'll say, well, we sent the check here. We sent the check there. We sent. So he has to be very nice to China, has to be very nice to Ukraine. And a huge success will be when the New York Times and the Washington Post and others put it on their front page, what's really happening here. Because this is truly 100 times bigger than Watergate. This is a much bigger story than Watergate. That's why Biden doesn't mind that China has opened up these military installations and in the process of building a tremendous amount in Cuba. It's only 90 miles off our coast. He's basically said it's okay. He's not doing anything. He's not even saying anything. He's not talking about it. What that means for our great Cuban population in Miami, I love the Cuban population. We got a record, I got a record number of votes. People were I got the Bay of Pigs Award. I was given the Bay of Pigs, it was a great honor, award by the Cuban population of Miami. But it means that this group of people in Miami that love Cuba, they want to get back there, they want to see their country, but it means for the rest of their lives, they will never see Cuba again. It's gone because China's occupying Cuba right now. That means it's gone. And they were getting ready to make a big, if the election wasn't rigged, the Cuban thing would have been taken care of and people could have gone back and forth to Cuba. Cubans, I'm talking about. They could have seen their family. They wouldn't have the problems that they have right now. He's given everything to Cuba and the dictator and dictators. And you know what that was, but it's incredible that this can be allowed to happen. So unless I get back in which case I will inform China that they have 48 hours to get any military and spy equipment out of Cuba. Or I will drop the hammer and there will be tariffs unlike anything that China's ever seen before. And you know, I took in hundreds of billions of dollars of taxes and tariffs from China. No other president has taken in 10 cents, not 10 cents. Took in hundreds of billions, gave $28 billion to the farmers because they were mistreated by China. Who else does that? Who the hell else would do that? You tell me. They know. But he wants to do nothing because he can't. He's really bound to not do anything. Never forget, our enemies want to stop me because I'm the only one who can stop them. And I'm stopping them because of you. I didn't need this. I didn't need it. If these corrupt persecutions succeed, they will complete their takeover of this country and destroy your way of life forever. And that's where it's going. That's where it's going. It's a disgrace. They want to take away my freedom because I will never let them take away your freedom. It's very simple. They want to silence me because I will never let them silence you. And in the end, they're not after me. They're after you. And I just happen to be standing in their way. That's all it is. That's all it is. Very simple, actually. Ultimately, the radical left lunatics are coming after all of us because they know that our allegiance is not to them. Our allegiance is to our country and to our Creator. And that's why under Biden, Christians are being persecuted like nothing this nation has ever seen before. I don't understand how people can vote, people of faith. And I'm not just talking about Christians. I'm talking about people of faith can vote for these Democrats. They've become monsters. They're fighting you all the way on religion. You know, I watched Biden during debates when he could speak, and he was trying to say, you know, oh, I love being a Catholic. You know what they're doing to Catholics right now? There's never been an assault on Catholics, the likes of which they're having right now, what they're having to go through. Biden's corrupt DOJ has targeted parents at school board meetings. They've sent SWAT teams to arrest pro-life activists. You know that. The FBI has been caught labeling devout Catholics as domestic terrorists and sending undercover spies into Catholic churches, just as it was in the old Soviet Union days. Pretty rough stuff. Who can believe this? And how can you, as Christians, how can the people in this room vote for them? You know, they get 40%, 50%, 60% of a religious vote. How can they do that? And then they just go about trying to destroy religion. If you look at polls, you'll see religion, people of faith, but religion is going down in terms of importance and popularity. This is not a question of importance and popularity. This is a fact. We love God and we want to protect ourselves. We want to protect the cherished position of believing in God. And I think one of the biggest problems this country has right now is it, as religion does go in the wrong direction, because it's something for you to adhere to and to believe in. It's so good. It keeps you sane. It keeps you honest. It keeps you good. It keeps you kind. It makes you help other people. And they're trying to take that away from you. And I just don't understand, where do they get 30, 40, 50, 60% of the vote? It just doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. They lie. They lie about their positions. And you have to remember that. In 2024, you have to remember that. Protect your vote is the most important thing. But you have to remember that. And you do have to protect your vote. They want to destroy your religion, along with the fact that they obviously want to destroy your country. When you have open borders, when you have no voter ID, why do they not want voter ID? Because they want to cheat. Even the Democrats voted 82% in favor. Democrats, people that vote, Democrats voted 82% in favor of voter ID, but the politicians don't want it because they want to cheat. And with voter ID, it's very much harder to cheat. They're mean and they're very, very sick. They are mean and they are very sick. Over the next 16 months, our enemies will try harder than ever to divide us and to destroy us. The lies, abuse, and injustice that will come our way will be worse than ever before in the history of our country. To persevere, we must stand tall. We must stand strong. We have to be strong. We have to be stronger than ever before because they're coming at us. There's something wrong with these people. And I don't like saying that. You know, as president, you're the president of everyone. So I don't like saying that. But there is something wrong with these people. And we have to stand together or we're not going to have a country anymore. The more they throw at us, the more united we must become. The more vile the attacks, the more relentlessly they go after us. We must keep pushing forward no matter what. You just keep pushing forward. That's what I do. I get up. People say to me, sir, can I ask you a question? How the hell do you take it? I say, do I have a choice? I don't have a choice, right? Do I have a choice? I'd love not to have to, but they're crazy people with there. They're lunatics. I've had the most successful business people in the country come up to me. A man who's one of the most successful, a vicious guy, very tough guy. I don't like him even. He thinks I'm his friend. I'm not, because he's a bad person. Like Governor Huckabee is a good person. He's actually tougher than this guy, but he's also a good person, the governor. But I tell you, he came up to me and he said, could I ask you one question? How do you get up in the morning? Every day they're coming at you with a different deal. I mean, it started with spying on your campaign. Then it went to the different impeachments and hoaxes and indictments. And how do you do it? And I actually said to him, it's like, it almost becomes a weapon of war. You have to fight these people and you have to beat them. We beat them now for 4 years and now afterwards. And by the way, if I weren't running right now, or if I was losing big in the polls instead of winning by the biggest numbers I've ever had, think of it, biggest numbers I've ever had, not even close, they would stop in 2 minutes. I believe, although maybe the hatred is so great. Actually, Lindsay and Mike, I think the hatred's so great they probably wouldn't stop. I think they would keep going, right? In my case. Normally they would stop, but in my case, I think they'd probably keep on going. But if I didn't run, or if I would say, you know, I'm not going to run, or if my numbers were bad, where it looked like I wasn't going to make it, they wouldn't be focusing on me. They would focus on whoever was leading, and they would go after that person, male or female, just as viciously as they go after me. And that person would not be able to handle it. That's why you have no choice but to vote for Donald Trump. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. Isn't it great? Saturday night, we're here for religion. Is that nice? And what a job Ralph has done. But this isn't my campaign. This is our campaign. This has got to be our campaign. And with your help, we're going to see through this whole, we're going to see through it. We're going to take this job right to the finish, and we're going to have a country the likes of which we've never had before, better than ever. We'll have it better than ever. No president has ever fought for Christians as hard as I have. And I will keep on fighting, and I'll fight hard until I'm back behind that desk in the Oval Office, the resolute task. Resolute task. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hey, Ralph. I have to ask Ralph a question. Were your other candidates treated this way? I don't think so. Actually, I saw one who was booed off the stage. He was booed off. I don't think they were treated. But you know, the greatest honor is, in my case, you feel this way because we went through 4 great years. We did things that nobody thought could be done, and we're going to go into them in a minute, but we did things that nobody thought could be done. So when you do feel this way, I really feel good, because that means you accepted and loved what we did in that 4 years. We did more than probably any, and many people say this, more than any president. We rebuilt our military. What we did is so So incredible. We did it together. I did it because of you. I was helped by you, and we had your support, and it was amazing. So I'm very gratified to get that kind of support, because in my case, it's not just words. You know, when I first came in, I said, I'm going to do this. I'm going to cut taxes, and I'm going to cut regulations, and I'm going to do all these things. And, you know, people would say, yeah, okay, it's just words because it's a politician. All of a sudden, I become a politician. I never had that moniker before, but all of a sudden, I become a politician. But I did all the things, but I actually did much more than I ever promised I'd do. So it makes me feel very good. We totally transformed the federal judiciary, appointing nearly 300 judges, a record, to interpret the law and the Constitution as written. I withstood vicious attacks to confirm 3 great Supreme Court justices, Neil Gorsuch, Brett Kavanaugh, and Amy Coney Barrett. And I just hope, because they're under tremendous assault and pressure. I mean, they are. Look, you know what, you see what's going on. In the sports world, they call it playing the ref. You know, they say horrible, horrible things, and some people change. A lot of them change, and we can't let that happen. I just hope that these justices, who are brilliant and very good people, I hope they remain strong in the face of the harassment and intimidation that is coming their way and has come their way by the radical left lunatics. I just hope they can withstand it. I hope they don't go to the other side so they feel a little bit better about going out to dinner. That happens so often. With politicians, it happens, but it happens with judges. And we hope that's not going to happen with them or any of our judges. Exactly 1 year ago today, those justices were the pivotal votes in the Supreme Court's landmark decision ending the constitutional atrocity known as Roe v. Wade. Thank you. Conservatives had been trying for 50 years, exactly 50 years. Amazing that today is the day. I don't know. Did you set this up on purpose? Was that done purposely? This is the day, 1 year. I mean, today is the birthday of that decision. Did you do that? I mean, it wasn't just by a fluke, right? I assume you did. Whether you did or not, this is the birthday, so it was pretty good. And Ralph's birthday, too. That was set up, too. Something strange is going on here. You know what they'll say? It's Trump's fault. It's Trump's fault. But I got it done, and nobody thought it was even a possibility. They've been fighting. Good people, strong people, smart people have been fighting for 50 years, and it never even came close to getting done. I don't believe they've ever even taken a vote. I mean, never even came close. It was something that wasn't going to happen. I got it done. I get a kick out of these candidates and even the other side. Well, I don't know. I think I'm more pro-life on this. And somebody stood up, a woman stood up and said, this guy ended Roe v. Wade. How the hell can you go against him? And I sort of said that myself, actually. But I'm proud to be the most pro-life president in American history. Thank you. Thank you. From my first day in office, I took historic action to protect the unborn. Very historic. Nobody else did anything near what we did. And it put us in such a great position, that victory. That victory, we'll go into it, but that victory is a tremendous victory in so many different ways, because they are the radical people. When they're willing to kill a child after birth, they're willing, take it beyond the 9 months. They are the radical people. They are the people that are really in trouble with the Lord. I reinstated and expanded the Mexico City policy. You know what that is? That was a big deal. Nobody else did it. Stop taxpayer funding for abortion providers. And at the United Nations, I made clear that global bureaucrats have no business attacking the sovereignty of nations that protect innocent life. And I did these things, and I took heat and I also got great love. I mean, you know, you have two sides to it, but I got great love. And I was the first sitting president ever to attend the March for Life rally right here in Washington, D.C. Under my leadership, we did more to uphold religious freedom than any administration in history by far. I could name some very good presidents that most of the people in this room would like, and they didn't attend the rally, and they didn't do the things we did, like the Mexico City policy. They didn't do anything, and yet most of the people in this room would like some of the people I would name. But we did it all. We fearlessly protected the conscience, rights of doctors, nurses, teachers, and faith groups like the Little Sisters of the Poor who were treated so badly. We came to their rescue. We stopped the Johnson Amendment from interfering with pastors' free speech under retaliation of terminating tax exemption. They really went after people. I was in a room and I said, why don't you speak up more? And had 50 pastors in the room, 2 rabbis, 50 pastors. We had a number of religious leaders, heavy on the pastors, I will say that. But they said to me, I said, I want to hear you. They said, we really can't speak because of the Johnson Amendment. This was in 2015, just before I announced. I said, that means that, explain it to me. If we speak out, and if the government wants to, they will take away our tax exempt status. I said, so you have less power, and you're the people that I want to hear from. You have less power than we were in Trump Tower, 60 stories up, looking down. I said, than any people walking on that sidewalk outside. He said, yes, in many ways we do. We can't speak up. And I got it so that the people that we want to hear can now speak up, so that Mike Huckabee spoke up anyway. I don't know. Did this have any? I don't think it had much impact on you. It had no impact on Mike. But it had a lot of impact on a lot of other people, and they have been speaking up, and it's important that they do so. I issued guidance making clear that the right to freedom of worship does not end at the door of a public school. Public schools are in tremendous trouble. And I was the first and only president to convene a meeting at the United Nations to end religious persecution worldwide. No other president has ever brought it up. As president, I stood proudly with our friend and ally, the state of Israel. I did more for Israel, they say, than any other president. I kept my promise, recognized Israel's eternal capital, Jerusalem, and opened the American embassy in Jerusalem. And I tell the story that sometimes, I don't know, it's maybe more of a good business story, but a general stood before me with something to sign, executive order, because I had won that battle. And it was a bill, essentially, for $2 billion to build an embassy in Jerusalem. And I said, General, what is this for? Sir, this is to build an embassy in Jerusalem. I said, this says $2 billion. How can you spend $2 billion on, like, I envisioned it as a one-story building, right? Nobody in this room, if you're in the real estate business, would spend quite that much. Maybe you'd spend like $2. But I said, how can you ask for $2 billion? Well, that's what they told. By the time you buy the land, sir, and you build the building and everything else, it's going to cost $2 billion. So I called up our ambassador and I said, David, see if there's something we have there already. We own a lot of land in Jerusalem. Do we have a great piece? And maybe it has like a little building on it where we can fix it up real cheap and we can. See, I'll always be in the real estate business, you know. I'll always love that business, and I love that business. We did great at that. That's a great business, but very creative. And I said, see what you have. They called me back 2 days later, said, sir, we have a fantastic site. We've owned it for many, many years. You know, we were there sort of like early on first. We have a great site, and there's a building on it that's been essentially abandoned, but it's a very strong structure. And we think we could fix it up and get it open very quickly. I said, how does it compare with the site that we're going to buy, that they want to buy for a ridiculous amount of money? By the way, that particular person who owned that site is not happy with me, I can tell you. That is not a person. We're going to pay hundreds of millions of dollars for this site. So I said, what do you think of the building? Well, I think we could fix it up. So they called me back a week later. I sent some people over. They said, sir, we can build a new embassy for $400,000. I said, let me ask you a question. It's the only time I ever said this. I said, listen, it sounds too cheap. We got to make it more. No, it actually sounded, I never did that. Usually I'll say, make it 200,000. I said, we got to make it more. It doesn't sound right. But a friend of mine in a big building in Manhattan has beautiful white stone, beautiful beige and white stone opposite his elevator bank. And every time I go into that building, he says, now he says President, but he used to say, Donald, look at the stone. It's so beautiful. And after saying it to me like 12 times, I said, what is it? He said, it's Jerusalem stone. It's so beautiful, very, very expensive. He's a very rich guy. He talks about the cost of stone, right? That's why he's rich, I guess, right? When you think. But he said, it's so beautiful, and I'm so proud of it. Jerusalem stone. So now I'm sitting here talking about building something in Jerusalem, and we're going to do a renovation of an existing building. And I said, listen, can we wrap that building in Jerusalem stone? Is it expensive? They said, absolutely not. We're in Jerusalem. We can buy it for free. So the whole building is made out of Jerusalem stone. Isn't that great? Sort of good. A little business story. But I did something else. And we got it built. You know, that thing would have never been built, the $2 billion building. It would have been years and years and years. And you might not have, they probably would have ended the whole concept of even moving the embassy to Jerusalem. It would have. So we got it built. And there's no reason to do any better because it's really a beautiful embassy, one of our nicest embassies, I think. But someday they'll come along and say, let's waste billions of dollars and do it the way we originally planned. But it's a great embassy and was very proud to do it. But we did something else that they weren't even asking for. The most pro-Israel people weren't even asking. I recognized Israeli sovereignty over the Golan Heights. And that has been going on, and that has been going on for 51 years. They've been trying to get that. People would fly in, fly out. They'd have meetings every 2 years. People would fly in, talk about it, fly out. I brought some people that truly knew Israel and understand Israel. I said, explain Golan Heights to me. You have 5 minutes or less. And they did it in about 3 minutes, but they talked about the importance. They talked about the height, the visibility, the military protection, all of the different things, and I approved it. And nobody even asked for it because they thought that was too far-fetched. But I got Golan Heights approved for Israel, and nobody talks about that one, but that was a big one. And then the biggest of all, but this administration has totally blown it. I pulled out of the horrible, horrible, one-sided, miserable Iran nuclear deal, which was expiring just about now anyway. And they were ready, had the election gone the way it should have gone. They were ready to make any deal with me. And as you know, I said to China, you can't buy. If you buy, we're not going to do business with you. Okay, we won't buy. No oil from Iran. Nobody was buying oil. They were ready to make a deal. We would have made a great deal for everybody. They would have been terrific. We all would have. They were dying to make a deal. And then when that tragedy turned out, the world's most corrupt election, when that tragedy turned out, what happened is everybody started buying oil from Iran. And Iran now is very rich. And instead of having a great negotiating position, we have a terrible negotiating position. And they're actually trying to make a deal that was worse than the first one. The first one was horrible. The first one was a short-term deal. I mean, it wasn't like it was for 50 years or 100 years. It would be expiring just about now. So, and that was a license for them to make nuclear weapons. And you cannot let Iran have a nuclear weapon. You cannot let it happen because bad things will happen if that happens. But I got that approved. That was the biggest of all. I was bigger than Jerusalem. That was bigger than the Golan Heights. I always considered that to be the biggest. But unfortunately, they took that deal and didn't do anything. Iran was they were dying to make a deal, and they didn't do anything with it. And then, of course, we did the Abraham Accords, which would have been, I mean, something incredible. Something incredible. So we took care of Israel like no president has ever. In fact, they said if I ran for prime minister of Israel, I'd get 99% of the votes. I'm thinking about doing that. We delivered the largest tax cuts and regulatory cuts on record in the history of our country. And we built the greatest economy in the history of the world. There's never been an economy like the economy we had. More jobs, more everything that we've ever had before. We achieved energy independence, and we're ready to be energy dominant. We were going to supply oil to all over Europe, everywhere. I was the one that brought up Nord Stream 2. You remember that? Nobody ever heard of Nord Stream 2. I said to Germany, Angela Merkel, I said, you can't make that deal. If you make that deal, that means you're going to be subservient to Russia. She said, no, 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 Donald, this will be wonderful. This didn't turn for them. Then gas prices, when I was in office, reached numbers like $1.87 a gallon, and even less. Think of that. Now they go to, and it hasn't stopped in 2 years. Created the most secure border in U.S. history, built nearly 500 miles of border wall, which was so got Mexico to give us 28,000 soldiers free of charge. I said, look, if you're not going to give them free, I'm going to have to tariff all of the cars that you're building, because, you know, they took those car companies out of Detroit and other places, and they now build 32% of our cars that are built in Mexico. I said, I'm going to put tariffs on if you don't give us the soldiers. And they said, we would love to give you the soldiers. It would be. We had the Remain in Mexico. That's for all the people that are pouring in. And I believe the number is going to be, Lindsay, 15 million people by the end of this year. And they come out of mental institutions. They come out of jails. They come out of insane asylum, which is a stronger word. They said, don't use those words, sir. They're nasty. But insane asylums, very sick people. And they're being, and terrorists are being poured into our country like never before. And I also terminated the ridiculous catch and release. The ridiculous. You catch the people and you release them in our country, okay? Now with Biden, basically that's what they do. But we caught the people and we released them outside of our country. I fully rebuilt the U.S. military, created Space Force, and defeated ISIS and brought our troops back home. You remember during the campaign, do you remember when they said, oh, he's going to bring us into World War III. He's going to bring us in personality type. I said, no, my personality is going to keep you out of World War III. That's what happened. But all of that was only the beginning, and here's just some of the bold agenda that I'll immediately implement when we become the 47th President of the United States. And I'll work with the people here and a lot of other people in Washington right now, because I just rode through Washington, and it doesn't look like it used to look with me. They have fences around their parks. They have tents up all over the place, tents. This is the capital. This is the most important thing. Think of this, the capital of our country. It's got papers all over the streets. The sidewalks are filthy dirty. I used to drive by and I'd be screaming over the phone, get those sidewalks clean, get this, get that. You got to get the tents down. You can't have the tents. You know, once those tents form, once you leave 4 or 5 of them, there was a group of 4 or 5, and I told Secret Service, you got to get over it. We got to take it down immediately, because once that happens, you have 10, then you have 20, then you have hundreds. And what's happened to this city since I've been gone is, oh, it's so sad. It's so dirty and filthy, and people are stopping coming. And that's true in a lot of other cities too. You look at Chicago, you look at San Francisco, look at New York, what's going on. All Democrat run. But it was so sad to see. You know, I look forward to coming here, but it was a very sad trip between the airplane and here, because I'm looking at something that I don't even recognize. It's so dirty, and it shouldn't be that way. It's a great place, and it shouldn't be that way. When I get back into the Oval Office, I will totally obliterate the deep state. Remember, we didn't know if there was a deep state. People would say, yeah, I don't know. Now about everybody thinks, yeah, there's a deep state. It's I call it a bad state. I'll fire the unelected bureaucrats who have weaponized our justice system. And they have weaponized. And we'll create the Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying. They spy on so much. Censorship, corruption. including all of that on Christians. The Christians have been under siege under this administration. Just please remember that. Please remember that when they tell you about how much they love you. They don't love you at all. They don't love you at all. Never again will federal law enforcement be used to target religious believers. And hopefully never again will it be used to target opponents in an election, because that's what they're doing. Americans of faith are not a threat to our country. Americans of faith are the soul of our country. And when I'm back in the White House, I will once again appoint rock-solid conservative judges, the mold of justices like Antonin Scalia and the great Clarence Thomas, who really they are going after right now very unfairly. You read that, sir, very unfairly. And before Election Day 2024, I will again release the full list of names from which I will select my appointments to the United States Supreme Court. I did that last time, and it had a big impact. To stop the Marxist and they are indeed Marxists, or worse, fascist, Marxist. Prosecutors who release rapists and murderers while persecuting conservatives and people of religion. I will direct a completely overhauled DOJ to investigate every radical DA in America, AG in America, for their illegal racist and reverse enforcement of the law. These are bad people. And they're being run by the DOJ, just in case you have any questions. You know, in New York, where they go after me, never had a problem. All of a sudden, I get a DA who's after me. Brag. But you know what they did? They put people from the DOJ into the DA's office. Can you believe it? I don't even think that's legal, they say. But I have DOJ prosecutors in there telling them how to go about it. But they haven't done a very good job because they have no case. To deter illegal immigration coming from jails and these mental institutions that I've told you about, all of the terrorists we're infiltrating, and they're infiltrating our country like never before in the history of our country. I don't think any country in the world has gone through this. And I always say, even a third world country wouldn't allow people in like this. They would stand there with sticks and stones. They wouldn't allow it to happen. One thing, nobody's been able to tell me why this is a good thing. Why is it a good thing? It's not good politically. Now, they all say, oh, no, they'll go and they'll vote. Well, first of all, we're doing very well with Hispanics, and large numbers are Hispanics. But you know, even more so, they don't need people because they cheat so much on the voting, they don't need. But if you think about their policies, open borders, high taxes, high interest rates, no voter ID, bad military, woke military, all these things, you can't win on policy unless you cheat. Just think about it. How can you win on any of those things? Does anybody really, I don't care, give me the most liberal person. Does anybody who's liberal or anything else want people to march and steam into our country and just come into our country? We have no checks, no balances. We have no idea who they are. And they do. They come from prisons and mental institutions, many of them. The mental institutions and the prisons in countries all over the world are being emptied out into the United States of America right now. Now, how the hell is that good politics? I don't understand it. And yet they get votes. They get votes. Somebody someday will explain it, or maybe people just don't know. That's why I say it as many times as I can, because nobody can want that to happen. I've already announced that I will sign on day one an executive order ending automatic citizenship for the children of illegal aliens. You have to do that. We're the only country in the world that does it. If you literally set a foot in the sand across the border, your child is called welcome to being an American citizen. It's so unfair to our country. In addition, here are some of the other actions I'll take to restore the border of the United States and to make it safe again. We had the most successful and strongest border in American history, and to get it back, I will immediately reinstate all of the incredibly successful border policies of the Trump administration, including our Safe Third agreements, which you know what that means.
Video froze up there.
Remain in Mexico. That's
go.
Pretty obvious what that means. Our asylum bans. We didn't let a lot of bad people in. We will complete, even more border wall. We built the border wall, and then we were going to add another 200 miles. And that's when I knew they actually wanted, because in 3 weeks they could have had it completed. And they not only didn't complete it, they took the gates, the fences, and the walls, and they moved it to other parts of the country so that nobody could get to it. And I said, you know, they must really want to have open borders, because we added in certain areas, it's a little like water coming through, right? And you have certain areas that you learn when the wall is up. So we were closing up those areas, would have been just incredible. And they didn't want that to happen. They actually took it. Texas wanted to buy it from the federal government. They said, we don't sell it. We wouldn't sell it to you under any circumstances. So that's when I realized for the first time that they were actually serious, that they want totally open borders, which is absolutely insane. And we're going to restore the prosecution policy, which saw a record number of prosecutions of illegal aliens who had to leave the country. We had to get them out. Sometimes they were so evil, so bad, that would put them in prisons in our own country because they have a tendency to come back. But they weren't able to come back because we had a very strong border. Drugs now are, think of this number. We did very well in drugs, not well enough, by the way. Nobody does well enough until they're gone, because I believe we're going to lose 350,000 people this year and destroy families all over our country. It's like an invasion. But drugs now are 12 times higher than they were just 2.5, 3 years ago, 12 times higher. They're pouring in. Fentanyl is pouring in. President Xi and I had a deal. He was going to make it criminal to make fentanyl in China. There'd be no more fentanyl coming from China. When I didn't win the election, meaning I won it, but when it was rigged, when the election took place, he said, well, I don't have to go by that deal anymore. He didn't want that deal. But it's made much of it in China, and it flows through the border. We want people to come into our country, but we want them to come into our country legally. We want people to come in. We want them to come in legally. And furthermore, I'll fully implement Title 42 across the entire southern border based on all of the diseases that illegal aliens are bringing in. It's unbelievable that even the judge in the case said, do you know what you're doing? Because the Biden administration wanted it terminated. And the judge wouldn't do it, but it terminated itself. Judge can't do anything about that. Judge said, you know what you're doing by asking for this? And we will have to do rapid deportation.
A little bit of a freezing up there again. It'll come back. Here we go.
All of these border crossers, but we have people that are very seriously ill with contagious diseases, and they're pouring into our country along with all of the rest. We have no idea who these people are. Nobody cares. Nobody cares on the other side. They can just come in. A friend of mine called. He said, how do I go about becoming a citizen? Do I take classes? I say, well, don't say I said it. But if you happen to walk down to the border, just walk across and you'll be fine. You know, it takes some people 10, 12 years. They go take tests. It's a beautiful thing to watch. And they love the country so much, and yet others just walk across the border. I'll also use Title 42 to end the child trafficking crisis by returning all trafficked children to their families in their home countries immediately. Horrible. Horrible. And I'll shift massive portions of the existing federal law enforcement apparatus to immigration enforcement, including parts of the DEA, ATF, FBI, and Homeland Security investigators. We're going to move them around. I will issue a policy directive making clear that a core national defense mission is to protect American sovereignty, and therefore we must use any and all resources necessary to stop this incredible invasion. It's an invasion, including moving thousands of troops currently stationed overseas and elsewhere to our own southern border. Following the Eisenhower model, I don't know if you know this, but Eisenhower was very strong on the border. We will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in American history, and we're going to get the bad ones out quickly. We got a lot of real bad ones. You know, these countries are very smart. I got to know all of the heads of the countries. They're very smart, very streetwise, and they don't let their good people come. They send the people in the caravans that they don't want, even if they're not officially criminals, if they're not officially, bad people. as we say, or people with serious medical problems, they want their people to stay in their countries. They don't want them to leave. And they send and they organize many of the caravans. The people, the heads of the countries organize these caravans. And they come right into the United States now. We stopped them. We stopped them cold, but they come right into the United States now. I will invoke the Alien Enemies Act, something people didn't even know we had, to remove all known or suspected gang members, drug dealers, or cartel members from the United States, ending the scourge of illegal alien gang violence once and for all. We were very tough on MS-13, the gang members. They don't like me at all. They don't like me too much. We will destroy the cartels, including by deploying U.S. Navy to impose a full naval embargo to close the waters of our region, because the land will be closed up, and to all smugglers and traffickers. And you know, they traffic mostly in women, just in case you didn't know that. It's mostly women, not children, not men. It's mostly in women. It's a horrible thing. It sounds like almost a prehistoric thing, but it's not. It's very modern. And what's made it so bad is the internet. It's like a big, huge business, but they traffic mostly in women. During my administration, we also took extraordinary steps to improve vetting for legal entry to keep criminals, thugs, and terrorists the hell out of our country. We strengthened the citizenship test by a lot. We stripped citizenship from those who threatened our security as a nation. We did social media vetting and created the first ever national vetting center. It's very successful. We found laws that had never been used before, and we use them now, because not easy to go through Congress, but there are so many laws. We used many of them, and very successful, including the right to tariff by the president, because again, China paid us and other countries paid us hundreds of billions of dollars, and it saved our businesses too, made them competitive. Today, I'm announcing a new plan to protect the integrity of our immigration system. Federal law prohibits the entry of communists and totalitarians into the United States. But my question is, what do we do with the ones that are already here that grew up in it? I think we have to pass a new law for them. Using federal law in Section 212F of the Immigration and Nationality Act, I will order my government to deny entry to all communists and all Marxists. Those who come to and join our country must love our country. We want them to love our country. We don't want them when they want to destroy our country. Welcome to America. We want to destroy your country. Thank you very much. So we're going to keep foreign Christian-hating communists, Marxists, and socialists out of America. We're keeping them out of America. When I was president, the world was stable and calm because America was respected and strong. Now, as we see in Russia and all of these other places, this whole world is on fire. This world is on fire. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine totally settled. I'll have it done in 24 hours. I say that, and I would do that. That's easy compared to some of the things. I'd get that done in 24 hours. I know them both. I know them both. As the Bible says, blessed are the peacemakers. See that? I will be your peacemaker. I was your peacemaker. Well, that's great. Blessed are the peacemakers. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. But it's so true, the peacemakers. I will stop Joe Biden's inflation nightmare, save the U.S. economy, and I will always protect Medicare and Social Security, which for some very bad politicians, it's under siege. I don't know if you know that. It's under siege by people that tried to do it before. I won't mention names. As your president, I will continue to stand proudly for pro-life policies, just as I did for 4 strong years. And we cannot in this room, and Republicans, but the people in this room, we cannot be afraid to take on the Democrat extremists. We can't be afraid. We have to be strong and powerful. That's why when I'm reelected, I will continue to fight against the demented late-term abortionists in the Democrat Party who believe in unlimited abortion on demand and even executing babies after birth. These are very troubled people, and the American public is on our side by overwhelming margins. You know, the politicians are going to have to learn to talk about this issue because they are the radicals. We're not the radicals. When you kill a baby after 4 months, 6 months, 8 months, 9 months, remember the governor of Virginia? He said, yes, the baby is born. You lay the baby aside, and then you make a determination as to what you do with the babies. In other words, he would kill the baby after, and you have many, they believe in that. That's what they want. They are the radical extremists. We're not the radical extremists. And politicians have to say that. They have to say that because they come out as radical. And the Democrats that believe in this late-term abortion, thanks to the Supreme Court decision of exactly 1 year ago, we gave those who have long been fighting for pro-life cause negotiating power for the first time ever. You have tremendous negotiating power. Now, with Roe v. Wade, you had none. You had no power. We've now given pro-life people tremendous power to negotiate something that will be happy, that will be good for everybody. And you have power for the first time. You didn't have that power. You had no power. They could do anything. They could kill the baby after the baby was born. They could kill the baby in the 9th month. These are horrible, horrible things to think about. And even other countries, other than 2 countries, I won't mention their names, China and North Korea. They have very strong limits. But I believe the greatest progress for pro-life is now being made in the states where everyone wanted to be. That's one of the reasons they wanted Roe v. Wade terminated, is to bring it back into the states where a lot of people feel strongly it should be and where legal scholars feel very strongly it should be, with the 3 exceptions that I support and Ronald Reagan before me supported for rape, incest, and for the life of the mother. A lot of people are more and more coming into that fold, and it's something you have to very consider. You have to go with your heart. You have to go with your mind. You have to make that decision. But the 3 exceptions, and Ronald Reagan was there a long time ago, and I got through 2 very successful campaigns. Actually, my second campaign was much more successful. I got 12 million more votes. So I don't know. I wonder what happened. However, there, of course, remains a vital role for the federal government in protecting unborn life. And it's very important. And I propose for you tonight, just as I did when I said that we will win the Supreme Court decision on abortion. Remember, I said that during my campaign. Everyone said, that's not going to happen. Nobody thought that was going to happen, but I will fight for you like no president has ever fought before. We'll get something done for the country. We're going to be for the country. We will defeat the radical Democrat policy of extreme late-term abortion, and we will bring everybody together to protect our precious unborn babies in a very, very big way. And now you have the power to do it because we terminated Roe v. Wade. Every child born and unborn is a sacred gift from God. Thank you. But you're in a much different position than you were before. Before you had nothing to negotiate with. Today you're in the driver's seat, very much in the driver's seat. Under my leadership, the United States will also rejoin the Geneva Consensus Declaration created by my administration and signed by 36 nations to reject the globalist claim of an international right to abortion. This declaration affirms the family as the foundation of a good and great society and states that every human being has the inherent right to life. And Joe Biden withdrew the United States from this historic declaration his very first week in office, as he did so much else. They ended Anwar, the biggest drilling site in the world, probably larger than Saudi Arabia, if you can believe it. This was in Alaska. Ronald Reagan couldn't get it done. Nobody could get it done. I got it done. And in the first week in office, he terminated Anwar. Would have been unbelievable, would have been great, but we'll bring it back. We'll bring it back. So many different things they terminated, but some things they couldn't terminate, like the tax cuts. They have never been able to do that. A lot of the regulation cuts that created all those jobs, they're having a hard time with that. But I'll return us to where we were right on day one. We're going to be returning our country very quickly. It's going to happen very fast. We know the right people. You know, I went through a lot of people. Some were fantastic. They were great. And some weren't good. But I came here, and I was only in Washington 17 times during my entire life. I read this in an article, so I assume it's true. Of course, it was written by a group that I'm not a big believer, but they said 17 times. I never stayed over. And I wasn't a part of Washington society, so I had to rely on people for recommendations. And many of them were good. Look, we rebuilt our military. We did so many incredible things, the tax cuts, the regulation. We had great people, but we had some people that I wouldn't have chosen if given a second shot. We had weak people. We had stupid people. We had people that had no leadership ability. We had some very bad people. We had some very great people that I'd use again in a heartbeat. Look at all the things we did. We did that because of great people. But now I know everybody. I know people. I don't have to rely on some rhino saying, why don't you give us this one to head intelligence? How about this guy to head intelligence, sir? You know, you had to rely on some rhinos that you don't want to rely on anymore. But you really learn, and you have to learn fast. You got some problems. But as we continue to fight for the unborn, and conservatives also have a duty to support the loving choice of adoption, including faith-based adoption. That's why, as part of extending the Trump tax cuts, you know, we're going to have to, the time is coming up, we're going to have to extend that. I will ask Congress to expand the adoption tax credit. We'll do that because a lot of people have been adopting, and that's a great thing. Another top priority will be to expel the communists and these terrible people that have taken over our education system. When you look, I will immediately sign a new executive order to cut federal funding for any school pushing critical race theory, transgender insanity, and other inappropriate racial, sexual, or political content on our children. And I always say this, can you believe this? Can you imagine saying this 10 or 15 years ago? I will fight for parents' rights. Of course you fight for. Today I have to say, I have to make it, I will fight for parents' rights. Of course you fight for parents' rights. Who would ever think you have to say that as a politician or as a person at a microphone, including the right to send your child to the public, private, charter, or religious school of your choice? Because what's happening there is terrible. That's why I will fight for the direct election of school principals by the parents of the school. If any principal is not getting the job done, the parents should be able to vote to fire them immediately and to select someone who will. And I will not give one penny to any school that has a vaccine mandate or mask mandate from kindergarten through college. And something else I find hard to believe that I have to even say, it's so ridiculous. It's so horrible and so ridiculous. I will keep men out of women's sports. So horrible. And I will sign a law prohibiting child sexual mutilation in all 50 states. Prohibited. And on day one, I will reinstate the Trump ban on transgenders in the military. We had it banned. Because our warriors should be focused on crushing American enemies, on being strong, on having the image of being strong. They have to be gender ideology. So you know I had this in the military. And a lot of the generals that I dealt with, the real generals, the good ones, the generals that weren't involved in the worst, most embarrassing day of our lives as a country. And that was the removal of our military from Afghanistan before our American citizens were taken out, before our soldiers were protected, leaving $8 worth of brand new Trump equipment. I bought it all, brand new, beautiful. New tanks, new planes, 70,000 vehicles, some of them, many of them armor plated, costing hundreds of thousands of dollars and even $1 million each. 700,000 rifles, guns, and that type of equipment. And now Afghanistan is the second or third largest seller of military equipment in the world because they don't need 700,000 rifles, do they? The best equipment, the finest equipment, the night goggles that they have are better than ours, brand new, not even taken out of the box. Now they fight at night because they never did. They couldn't see. Now they see very nicely. But as you know, in the military, you're not allowed to take virtually any drugs. You're not allowed to take drugs. Take an aspirin, you have a problem. And to have this operation, you have massive amounts of drugs required on a daily basis, massive, massive amounts of drugs. Furthermore, I will ban all taxpayer funding for sex or gender transitions at any age. And just as I've done for 4 years, I will fully uphold our Second Amendment. We need our second. I will bring back free speech in America. And finally, to restore pride in our history and confidence in our future, I will lead a massive year-long salute to America to celebrate the 250th anniversary on July 4th. This was July 4th, 1776, okay? There are other dates you hear about, but this is the date that we recognize, 1776, and we're going to have a big celebration, and it's going to be a celebration like we really deserve in this country for everything we've gone through. With you at my side, we will give our nation's founding the amazing anniversary party that America needs and so richly deserves. Days from now, all of us will be celebrating this year's Independence Day at a very challenging time for our country. As we do, let us remember the words of one Massachusetts preacher during the Revolutionary War on an autumn night in 1777, when the fate of our nation looked very, very bleak, much as it does in many ways right now. Be of good courage, he urged the patriots in the pews, because the cause of American independence is a glorious, glorious cause. Today, we are a nation in decline, and it is because of our corrupt and inept leadership and the power of modern day weaponry. It's so powerful, so horrible. It's so horrible. The levels of power, you've never seen anything like it. Shouldn't even be discussed. It wasn't talked about very much during my term. I didn't want to have anyone talking about it, but the level of power of modern day weaponry is horrible. It's the most dangerous period in the history of our country. It's time for us, because of all of this.
Sorry about the freezing, folks.
So scary. We have leaders that don't have a clue. We have leaders that have no idea what they're doing. They have no idea. We have leaders that are totally corrupt. These are corrupt people. It's time for us to keep our faith, our unity, and our resolve. We must be strong like never before. We must be unstoppable. Together we will take on the communists and the Marxists and the fascists and the globalists and the fake news media, which is just as bad as all of them. And we have to take on crooked Joe Biden and the worst administration in the history of this country. And propelled by the spirit of July 4th, 1776, we will win a righteous and resounding victory on November 5th, 2024, and we will make America great again, greater than ever before. Thank you all very much. God bless you. God bless you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
So we'll drop the audio out of that. Just let some of this roll while I kind of provide some commentary here at the end. Trump, great speaker, speaking for pretty much an hour and a half straight. He certainly has great oratory skills. And I noticed in the comments a couple of people saying that they've been sort of zeroing in on or paying attention a lot to Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and that they had sort of forgotten what a great speaker Trump is. And he does know how to engage the crowd. Tonight, focusing on his indictment, of course, election issues. And, Leo mentioned in the comments, I noticed that he's concerned that we might get banned on YouTube. And while that normally has been a concern, YouTube has changed its policies with regard to mentioning the 2020 election. And I don't want to say too much because I don't want to press my luck, but they have revised their policy with regard to election mentioning the issues surrounding the 2020 election. So we should be safe with him saying what he said. That has resulted in us getting into trouble in the past. But now with their change in policy, hopefully we'll be able to cover Trump properly, fairly, and thoroughly without worrying that we might get deplatformed because of what he's saying. And tonight I was worried about it. It's just a knee-jerk reaction, though, because it's supposed to be okay to say it now. And he said it again. And he says it in every speech. And that's why I said earlier tonight, if it's RFK versus Trump in the end, and that's what we have, they might have to ban both candidates entirely from social media because they hate them both. RFK actually is the one that seems to be getting the bulk of the negative pushback from social media, the deplatforming. I don't know what they're going to do with him in the end, but he's actually getting he's being censored more right now than even Trump. So we have to be very careful about how we proceed with that. Now, we are endeavoring to provide pretty extensive election coverage heading into the presidential race for 2024. And you can support our coverage, as you see there on the bottom of the screen, at electionwatch2024.com. If you want to support our election coverage specifically, that's the page to go to in order to donate, to make sure that we can continue to provide feeds and even put some people out in the field to cover the 2024 presidential election. And we're just getting that going. We're working out some of the bugs, and we have a system that we're setting up. So if you'd like to support that, please go to electionwatch2024.com, and that will help us fund our presidential election coverage for the 2024 presidential election race. So really appreciate that. Now, what else can I say about tonight's speech? Somewhat predictable. He was hitting all of the key issues. I took note of him saying that he would not fund gender affirming care or operations, would not support or fund schools that endorse or promote or teach transgender ideology. He also said that he would not provide funding for schools that have mask or vaccine mandates in place. Supported, of course, school choice again. A lot of these issues were issues that helped propel him to the presidency to begin with. Touched on immigration again. All the issues that really have been consistently conservative, consistently Trump. And he said that he also would be, for the American people, their peacemaker. So he wants to be a president of peace. That runs contrary and against the grain with the neocons and certainly the Biden administration and the neoliberals, who obviously want the war in Ukraine to continue and are continuing to push for regime change, honestly, in Russia. So he's in stark contrast to that, and yet in alignment with RFK Jr., who's over there trying to get the Democratic nomination. In my view, really, he's running with the wrong party. He doesn't belong where he's at. I don't know where he's going to end up over there. It just doesn't seem to make sense. He resonates more with conservatives, with Republicans, even with the MAGA crowd. There's a lot of overlap there on policy between RFK Jr. and Donald Trump. Not entirely. There are some issues where they do not mesh, but overall, there's a lot of overlap. It's pretty surprising. But I think that's because the two candidates are populist candidates. RFK Jr. is not really a Democrat. Trump is not really just a Republican. They're both populists with a, how shall I put, a tint of Republicanism on Trump's side and a tint of, I would say, traditional Democrat on the RFK side. You know, when it comes to issues like the environment, climate change, things like that, I think you'll find that RFK Jr. is more on the conservationist side, but still subscribes to some of the climate change doctrine. While over on the Trump side, you'll find that he rejects more of that. So that's where we start to see a departure in the ways between the two candidates. Now you get into what Biden is all about, or what some of these other candidates running against Trump are about on the Republican side, and you're going to find a lot of neocons in there, pro-war, pro-Ukraine war, pro-Ukraine overall. And just this past week, and I'm going to bring up this clip, he went after Trump in a speech. As a result, they booed him. And he was speaking at this exact same conference. This was a day ago, Chris Christie. And I'm going to play this clip for you. I don't think this guy stands a chance, honestly, with Republicans. And speaking at this conference, they did not respond well to him. Now, they warmed up to him a little bit after he elaborated and went on and spoke about other aspects of the issues that he was focused on. But listen to the way they responded to him criticizing Trump at this exact same rally just a day ago.
This is neat.
Second here, we need to adjust this so that we get the actual feed out. Chris Christie. Here we go.
I'm running because he's let us down. He has let us down because he's unwilling. He's unwilling to take responsibility for any of the mistakes that were made, any of the faults that he has, and any of the things that he's done. And that is not leadership, everybody. That is a failure of leadership. And you can boo all you want. But here's the thing. Our faith teaches us that people have to take responsibility for what they do. People have to stand up and take accountability for what they do. And I cannot stand by. And as soon as I've started to be critical, after all of that, and after you offered me White House Chief of Staff, now what he does is call me names and belittle me. And I will tell you, if all you do is disagree with someone, and in return you get that kind of treatment, I've joined a great list of Americans like Rex Tillerson and Jim Mattis and Mark Esper and Mick Mulvaney and John Kelly and all the rest. And you can love him all you want, but I will tell you that doing those kind of things makes our country smaller.
That clip from NBC, but they weren't the only one to be running that. Wow. But remember, I mean, he talks about taking responsibility and letting people down. I haven't forgotten what Chris Christie did during the pandemic. This stuck in my mind, and I'm going to call him out on it again right now. He shut down a beach during the pandemic. No one was supposed to go to the beaches. Everybody was supposed to stay home, because of the pandemic. And then he went out and did that right there. Went to the beach with his family while everyone else was told they weren't allowed. One set of rules for him and people like him, and a whole other set of rules for commoners like us. I found that incredibly distasteful. And then he stands up there at the podium. It says what he says about Trump. Doesn't wash. Doesn't fly with me, man. Not after that. I'll never forget that. I'll never forget it. And that guy wants to be president again. He ran against Trump in 2016 for the nomination. Lost. Doesn't stand a chance this time. The MAGA people won't embrace him. The base that Trump has will never embrace him. I'm not even sure how he's polling. He might be, if he's lucky and he's even registering, I bet you he's at less than 5. Doesn't stand a chance. But, look at the size of those legs. Wow. Anyway, he's a big man, but not in a good way. I can't. Oh my God. Politicians. Well, people do have short memories and they are fickle. No question about it. That being said, Trump is still way out in front in the polls. He's still the man to beat. DeSantis a distant second, and everybody else is pulling up the rear behind that. Pence too, man, like not a chance. He doesn't stand a chance. So I think it'll be Trump on the Republican side. We'll see what happens on the Democrat side. We'll continue our coverage of election for the presidential election for 2024. And again, you can support our coverage by going there and making a donation if you can, if you're able to. We certainly appreciate all the support we get around here, and we certainly need it because we don't have any corporate sponsors. We are not monetized on any social media platforms, completely demonetized off YouTube. You can also donate through the Rumble Rants on the Rumble channel, and we are putting together our election team. And if you haven't subscribed, please consider doing that. Subscribe on YouTube, but especially subscribe over on Rumble, where we continue to grow. And we need that platform because it is more free speech oriented. We are far less likely to be censored and banned over there. And as you know, we continue to run into some struggles in that regard on Facebook, YouTube, and not so much on Twitter these days, since Elon Musk has taken that over. And as I say, the policies with regard to coverage or mentioning the 2020 election has changed. So hopefully we won't run into any problems after what we just aired tonight with the Trump campaign speech from the Faith and Freedom Conference. Well, folks, that gets us to 9:43 p.m. You can donate as well at freedomreporters.com if you'd like to just support our general everyday news program here on the Maverick News channel. You can donate at maverickdonations.com. And here, let me just take this one down. Not that one. That one. Okay, maverickdonations.com. You can also donate at freedomreporters.com. Certainly appreciate all the support we're getting. It is all you. That is what keeps us operating here. The only source of support we have is directly from you guys, the Maverick family, our viewers. I will be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on the Maverick News Channel, where we have the antivirus programs for your mind.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.